Chapter 5600. However, after hearing fifth brother's suggestion, Yi Qian was very tempted. I think it's a good idea. We need to respect traditional etiquette, but we don't have much time. We have to report to the team on the 6th day of the new year. Why don't we keep it simple? Grandpa, what do you think? Yi Qian did not agree immediately just because he was interested. He still had to listen to Old Master's opinion. Old Master valued etiquette and was not a stickler for etiquette. As long as the younger generation was happy, it was fine. There was still an engagement, but it was to keep it simple and have a different kind of engagement. Sure, I don't have any objections. Let me see how good my little princess is at horsemanship and shooting. Old Master respected the younger generation's decision. As long as they were happy, it was fine. He was already very happy that family Xia valued his granddaughter, so it was fine to keep it simple. Although the formalities were important, the most important thing was their relationship and family Xia's importance. Old Master nodded. Father Fu also had no objections. Father Fu saw the smile on his daughter Yi Qian's face and agreed in his heart. As long as his daughter was happy, he would accept everything. Therefore, the engagement would be simple and the venue would be the racecourse and shooting range. However, it was only the Fu family's one-sided agreement. Family Xia did not know about it yet. Xia Jinyuan called home from the study. As soon as he finished speaking, old Madame Xia immediately scolded him. You little brat, how can you be so insensible? An engagement is such an important event, and you want to keep it simple? Do you want to go to heaven? The Fu family handed their only child to your family and married into our family Xia. Xiao Jian is not even your wife yet, and you dare to treat her so badly? Where are you now? Come back here immediately. I must give you a good beating. Also, if you dare to mention this to the Fu family, you. Old man, paint your horse with tung oil. It's better to use it at home. Old Madame Xia was really angry. The Fu family agreed to Yi Qian's engagement early because the Fu family was very principled and had the intention of family Xia. Now, that brat still wanted to simplify everything and make Xiao Jian feel wronged? No way. Old Madame's scolding warmed Yi Qian's heart. Father Fu couldn't help but laugh. He gently hugged Yi Qian's shoulder and listened to Old Madame's scolding. He sighed with a smile and said, Even if you get married, Father will be relieved. With Old Madame's love and protection, his daughter would not marry into his family. Instead, she would move from her own family to another family. She would not be wronged because of a change of location. When the old man saw that his future grandson-in-law was being scolded by his in-laws, the kind-hearted old man couldn't bear it any longer. He smiled and waved at Xia Jinyuan. Good boy, you've suffered. Come, let Grandpa talk to your grandma. This time, Old Master's appearance made old Madame Xia even more ashamed. Old Fu, my insensible grandson, don't worry. This is his fault. It's all his fault. When he comes back, I'll make him kneel in the ancestral hall. The old man and I will deal with him personally. He's too insensible. You married the granddaughter of the Fu family, whom they can't bear to suffer any grievances, to our family Xia, and he still wants to keep it simple? No way. I won't agree to this. Master Xia was full of energy. He suppressed his anger and apologized to old Master Fu. Old Fu, don't worry. That brat needs to be taught a lesson. If he wants to make Xiao Jian suffer, the old woman and I will be the first to disagree. Our family Xia doesn't have the problem of making our daughter-in-law suffer. If he dares to get sick, there will be a group of people waiting to teach him a lesson. Chapter 5601. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5601. Big Trouble, Urban Romance. Chapter 5601. Big Trouble. Old Master Xia was so angry that his expression changed. What an insensible brat! He was too insensible. I'll ask his father, uncle, and aunt to come forward and whip them a few times until they become obedient. I haven't taught him a lesson for a long time. I'm afraid that his devil's temper has flared up again." Hearing this, Yi Qian felt sorry for her man. This was really scolding him for nothing. The old man waited for family Xia and old Madame Xia to finish before he laughed and explained. After about 5 minutes, Master Xia and old Madame Xia were skeptical. Really? Even Xiao Jian herself agreed? Did that brat force her? Old Fu, let little Jian do the talking. I want to get to the bottom of this. Little Jian is honest, but old Six is too much of a jerk. I'm worried that Xiao Jian might have been forced by that brat. Comrade Xia Jinyuan was on the verge of tears. She was definitely his biological grandmother and grandfather. He really didn't do anything wrong. He really didn't mistreat his baby. He felt that his baby would definitely like such an engagement. That was why he said it. Unexpectedly, it was not the Fu family who was angry, but the family Xia. He needed to ask if Xia Jinyuan had really picked her up from the street. Father Fu felt that his future son-in-law really did not have it easy. He was waiting for Yi Qian to explain things to the old madam. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Father Fu patted his future son-in-law's shoulder sympathetically and sighed. It's not easy for you, but I'm relieved. In the future, if Fu Yuxing dared to bully Fu Yuxing's daughter, the elders in the family Xia would probably teach him a lesson on his behalf before he, as her father, could do anything about it. It was said that family Xia was strict and would never reveal the root of the problem. From this call, it was indeed evident. Yi Qian explained seriously and expressed that she really liked Xia Jinyuan. With her repeated explanations, Master Xia and old Madame Xia finally believed that their granddaughter-in-law really liked Xia Jinyuan. As for the in-laws, they didn't feel belittled. As long as the children liked it, everything was fine. The two elders heaved a long sigh of relief. Old Madame Xia thought about it and still felt that this matter was a little strange. This kind of idea did not seem like Sixth Brother's idea. One had to know that when he came back last night, he was very serious about respecting the etiquette of the old master's side and not letting his wife suffer. At that time, the old man kicked him directly. He said it as if they, the old men, would be wronged by their granddaughter-in-law. How could Sixth Brother come up with such an idea that might upset the Fu family if he did not do it well? As for their granddaughter-in-law, she was the most down-to-earth child. It was even more impossible for her to think about those fancy things. The more old Madam thought about it, the more she felt that there was something fishy about this matter. Old Madam asked tentatively, "Did you and Sixth Brother come up with this idea together?" "No, Grandma. Fifth Brother thought that we would like it. He told Sixth Brother first, and then Sixth Brother told me." Yi Qian didn't think too much about it and betrayed Fu Yuxing to old Madam. When Xia Jinyuan heard this, he didn't even have the chance to stop her. He could only watch as his daughter betrayed Fu Yuxing. "Fifth Brother, you're on your own. Little brother, I really can't help you this time." At the same time, a girl with delicate features drove a car from Fujian town, far away. Chapter 5602. 10,000 Miles Red Star lives up to your expectations. Chapter 5602 Invasion, Urban Romance, JEQI Chapter 5602. Invasion. The eldest daughter was quite good-looking. She had delicate features and was dressed fashionably. Her black hair was tied into a high ponytail. Her eyes blinked as she spoke, and her eyes were watery as if they could speak. She was also very polite when she asked questions. When she called out "Uncle" and "Auntie," if you said you didn't know, she would say, "Sorry to disturb you." The driver was a child raised by a rich family. He was really polite. However, they had never heard of the girl that the eldest daughter asked about. They guessed that she wasn't a child from the town. "Miss, the person you're looking for isn't a child from our town. I'm afraid she's a child from the village," an auntie kindly reminded her. I'm an old man in town. I know all the promising children around here, but I've never heard of the Yi Qian you mentioned. The eldest daughter's curved eyebrows furrowed slightly, revealing a trace of confusion. Is that so, Auntie? Then do you know who else has the surname Yi in town? Yi? I don't know. Here, the surname Zhang is the real surname. At least 7 out of 10 have the surname Zhang. The surname Yi you mentioned is either an outsider or a businessman who came to our town to do business. Later on, they moved away. Auntie, please take note of the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. Fu Juntown was a self-employed person. Her family ran a food wholesaling department, which specialized in wholesaling to the small shops in the village. Hence, she knew many people. Li Qin observed for 3 whole days in Fujian town before she set her sights on this auntie. This was because she realized that this auntie knew everything that had happened in the Dong family, why the couple next door had quarreled last night, and which family's child had stolen money. Moreover, every time she came to her house for wholesaling, she would be able to chat enthusiastically. She would also find out what had happened in these villages. When the people from the other village came to distribute food, she would be able to tell them what had happened in this village. Then, she would know everything that had happened in both villages. For the sake of fair trade, the aunt would also tell the villagers about all the big and small things that happened in the town. They would chat as they bought and sold. Among the several wholesale stores in the town, her business was the best. Li Qin had observed him in the past 3 days. He was warm, hospitable, knew how to make deals, and knew many things about the town and the village. She admired the means of such a small figure. If even she did not know, then it would be difficult for her to find out the exact location of Yi Qian's village. My dear daughter, Auntie is not lying to you. I have never heard of Yi Qian's name before. Being admitted to a university is a joyous occasion for everyone in the surrounding villages. Even if it's the villagers who come to my house for wholesale, I've heard of it. But this Yi Qian that you're looking for, Auntie has no impression of him at all. There's no one with the surname Yi in our town. The surname Yi is very young. I'm afraid that he has settled down alone. There are few people and he doesn't come out often. The aunt was afraid that her beautiful eldest daughter would not believe her. After she finished speaking, she bent down and took out the address book that was distributed by the village and town. It contained the address book of all the villages in the town. Come, take a look. Take a look. The aunt stuffed the dusty and dirty address book into Li Qin's hands. Take a look at this. Almost all the families with the surname Zhang installed on it. There are only 3 to 4 people with different surnames on this page. These foreign surnames either fled to our place during the Great Famine, settled down, and took root here. Or they were educated youths who went to the countryside and settled down here. Or they married into the family and changed their surname. After hundreds of years, there are more and more people with different surnames in our town. Therefore, no one thinks that they are with different surnames. Chapter 5603. 10,000 miles of red star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 5603. Love old people, urban romance, JQI Chapter 5603. Love old people. The auntie saw that Li Qin was beautiful and rich, so her words were laced with a hint of flattery. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said so much. Anyone who doesn't have the surname Zhang belongs to one of these 3 categories. Our surname is Zhang, so there's a record. The auntie's surname was also Zhang, but the person she married was not Zhang. However, this topic was a bit far-fetched, and Li Qin, who grew up abroad, didn't completely understand. The only thing she understood was that Yi Qian's surname was Yi. His family might not have been from here a long time ago, but had moved in from outside. Li Qin flipped through the address book and didn't look for it anymore. She had observed the auntie for 3 days. If she said she didn't know, then she didn't need to waste any more time. She couldn't ask around, so she could only ask. Now that there was no problem, she could only leave. Someone kept picking and choosing in the shop. She wanted to buy everything, but at the same time, she didn't want to buy anything. The chatting auntie glanced at her and saw that she was just picking and choosing. She didn't say anything. Li Mi casually bought a cigarette from Nan Province, and it was the most expensive one. Li Qin walked out of the shop as the auntie said, "Take care." After a few steps, Li Qin's footsteps paused, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed in her eyes. "If you read for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes." In front of her car, there was someone following her. Li Qin turned around and looked at the woman who was a few meters away from her. "Hello, is there anything I can help you with?" she asked politely, not at all annoyed at being disturbed. In just a few words, Li Qin had already sized up the woman who was following her from head to toe. The woman wasn't tall, about 1.58 meters, and was skinny. She had a pair of restless eyes that looked back and forth between Li Qin's body and the car, as if she was evaluating her. Her facial features were somewhat harsh, her skin was very rough, and there were yellow-brown spots on her cheeks. This was a restless and snobbish woman. She couldn't tell how old they were. She didn't know if the women here didn't pay attention to their appearance or maintenance, but they often looked more than 5 years older than their actual age. She could tell that the auntie just now was a rich person in town. However, after asking around, she found out that the auntie was only 43 years old. She was 4 years younger than she had guessed. Did you really get Yi Qian's permission?" Xie Sifeng, who had been forced by life all year round and had long lost the brilliance of her youth, asked carefully, "Are you her high school classmate or her college classmate?" Li Qin immediately realized that the snobbish woman in front of her, whose age could not be determined, knew Yi Jian. "Do you know her?" Li Qin asked with a smile. "Was she her elementary school classmate or middle school classmate?" Xie Sifeng was asking Li Qin, and Li Qin was also asking Xie Sifeng. The former wanted to get more money from Li Qin, while the latter wanted to confirm whether Xie Sifeng was really Yi Qian's classmate or not. Xie Sifeng swallowed and gave a flattering smile. "We were classmates from elementary school to middle school. We were even classmates." "Classmates?" Li Qin frowned deliberately, with an expression that said, "Are you a liar?" Xie Sifeng couldn't win against Li Qin, who had been trained since childhood. She immediately said, "I'm not a liar. I really was her classmate. I know her and her sister, Yi Ying." "Yi Ying, have you heard of Yi Ying? She was the famous campus belle in our town's middle school. Her father worked in our town, but later he was promoted and left." Chapter 5604. At the mention of Yi Ying and Yi Zhifan, Xie Sifeng's eyes narrowed slightly. Unfortunately, Yi Ying had ruined all her good cards. Her mother had gone crazy and was sentenced to death. As for her, she was nowhere to be found. She had been in contact with her a few years ago, but now there was no news of her. No one knew where she had gone. Sometimes, she wanted to contact her to see if she could help her, but in the end, she was nowhere to be found. Yi Ying's departure was not widely known, so no one in elementary school, middle school, or high school knew. Even the villagers in Shuku village did not know whether Yi Ying was dead or alive. Some said that she had been sentenced to death along with Yi Zhifan, while others said that she was still serving her sentence in prison. She had done too much evil and would never be released. Xie Sifeng thought that Yi Ying must be doing well in the outside world. After all, Yi Ying was very powerful at that time. At this moment, facing Li Qin, who was beautiful, drove, and obviously rich, Xie Sifeng's greed was like a wild beast that had been released from its cage. She slowly moved to the side of the car and carefully touched the car with her rough hands. "This car is so expensive. I used to take a taxi in the provincial capital and saw that my boss had a car like this. My husband said that these cars cost a lot of money. Ordinary people can't afford to drive them. You're so rich. You're so young and drive such a nice car. You must be very, very rich." Of course, Li Qin was rich. She was very rich. She had bought this car as a means of transportation on the first day she entered the country. Seeing that the woman could not hide her greed, Li Qin knew what she wanted. "You're looking for Yi Qian? Are you looking for her? Her house is a little remote. I can't find her without someone to lead the way," Xie Sifeng said in a low voice as she touched the car. Her rough palms touched the smooth body of the car. Xie Sifeng swallowed her saliva. A car, such a beautiful car. She used to hope that someone would buy her a car, a house, and give her a lot of money to spend. That kind of life was the kind of life she, Xie Sifeng, wanted to live. However, those days were getting further and further away. They were so far away that they could only appear in dreams. Last night, just last night, she had a dream. In the dream, she was dressed beautifully, carrying a delicate and beautiful bag, wearing high heels and a mink fur coat, driving a white car. Yes, it was the white car in front of her. In the dream, she was so majestic, so handsome, so rich, so realistic. But none of it was real, none of it was real. When he woke up, there was nothing left. No, it's not that there isn't anything. Look, isn't there something now? A white car, a beautiful woman, and Yi Qian. Looking for Yi Qian? Why were they looking for her? "I'm Yi Qian's classmate. I can tell you anything you want to know. You won't be able to get anything if you keep asking around like this because Yi Jian is too low-key. No one in the town knows about her. Even the neighboring village might not know about her. You can ask me what you want to know. Don't waste your energy on anything else. You won't be able to get anything. This car is so beautiful. Is it very, very expensive?" It was becoming more and more obvious. That kind of greed was no longer a greed for money, but an insatiable greed. Li Qin's eyes became colder and colder. Chapter 5605. When they were still in Melbourne, Li Jun had told Li Qin that it was difficult to get information about Yi Qian. Old man Li had spent a few years and a lot of money, but he had only managed to get a little information. It was obvious that Yi Qian was not an ordinary person. The reason why Li Ronghuan found out that Yi Jian was a suspect was that she had found her old friend who loved money. That was how she got the news. But it was too late now. Her old friend had passed away in December last year. In other words, the only person who had told them about Yi Qian was also dead. Asking about Yi Qian was like looking for a needle in a haystack. It was very difficult. Their only hope was that their aunt could help them and see if she could find out anything. Li Qin did not believe it. She only believed that if they had money, they would definitely be able to get information about Yi Qian. Therefore, Li Qin, who had come from Melbourne, was prepared to spend a lot of money in exchange for information about Yi Qian. However, Xie Sifeng seemed to be threatening Li Qin. This made Li Qin unhappy. Who dared to threaten Li Qin when they were overseas? No one dared to. If there were, Li Qin would kill them. However, this was not Li Qin's territory. Li Qin still wanted to find the place where Yi Qian was born and grew up. Therefore, even if she was unhappy and wanted to kill him, she had to endure it. The car is indeed very expensive. You touched a little bit of paint on it. You can't afford to pay for it even if you sell yourself. Li Qin smiled and said, "Your hands are very dirty. And I don't like dirty people touching my car. If you touch it again, I'll chop off your hands." She wanted to threaten her? How dare she? Xie Sifeng was also a rude person. However, when she heard a rich girl say that she would chop off her hands, even if she said it with a smile, Xie Sifeng's heart trembled violently. She was frightened and retracted her hands. She looked embarrassed. "I didn't touch it. How can a good car be damaged so easily? Do you not want to know about Yi Qian? Then I'll leave." After that, Xie Sifeng pretended to leave and waited for Li Qin to call her. Li Qin didn't call her. If she was really Yi Qian's classmate, then her family and the people living around her house should know about Yi Qian. Xie Sifeng waited for someone to call out to her, but no one called out to her even after she had taken a few steps. She even heard a beep from the car and the rich girl slamming the car door shut. Xie Sifeng, who wanted more, panicked. This. Wasn't the swan meat in her mouth flying away? How would she dare to be greedy? She would even be happy to be greedy for a few hundred yuan. She hurriedly turned around and patted the carriage. Miss, let's talk nicely, I was stupid just now. I didn't know how to speak properly. Let's talk nicely. We can also discuss the price. 1,000 yuan, is 1,000 yuan enough? Was it too much? 800. Finally, it reached 500. Li Qin rolled down the car window and looked at the anxious woman. She smiled coldly and said, "Get in." 500, ha ha ha, 500. Yi Qian's information was only worth 500 yuan. In that case, she wasn't worth much. Xie Sifeng, who was sitting in a luxury car for the first time, touched everything excitedly. Li Qin didn't have the patience to continue chatting with her. She took out 500 yuan notes from her wallet and threw them behind her lazily. Don't test my patience. If she tried to threaten her again, she would kill her in the car. Xie Sifeng, who didn't know that she had just escaped death, bent down to pick up the notes one by one. She spat some saliva on her fingers and deliberately counted them. Then she looked at the window to check the security. Yes, it was real. Chapter 5606. Then, Xie Sifeng began to talk about Yi Qian. She started from when she was in the 5th grade. She didn't even remember when she was younger. She talked until she graduated from the 3rd grade. She talked until her mouth was dry. If it weren't for the fact that she didn't need to drink much water in winter, she would have gotten out of the car to ask for a glass of water. This time, she spoke clearly and didn't hide anything. Moreover, she answered all of Li Qin's questions. Only then did Li Qin feel a little better. In a good mood, Li Qin took out a stack of money from her bag and threw it to Xie Sifeng. She remembered Xie Sifeng. Xie Sifeng was so happy that she was about to go crazy. Even though the stack of money was scattered all over the back seat, she bent down, curled up, and picked it up. She was so happy that the corners of her eyes were about to cramp. Money, it was all money. It was all money that she liked. The stack of money was 10,000 yuan. Li Qin didn't care about the tens of thousands in her bag. She looked at the rearview mirror and saw Xie Sifeng struggling to pick up the money. Li Qin was very satisfied. She said that there was nothing that money couldn't solve. Last request, a photo. I need a photo of Yi Qian. If you have it, give it all to me. Li Qin opened the bag that contained tens of thousands of yuan and showed Xie Sifeng a big bundle of money. Xie Sifeng, who had not finished picking up the money, stared at the bundles of money. It was all hers. This woman said that it was all hers. It was all hers. Photo, now, go home. Give it to me. The money is yours. Li Qin closed the bag again and didn't show it to Xie Sifeng. She knew what a woman who only cared about money would do. She wanted money. She had money. She didn't need it. Just give it to her. Xie Sifeng returned home with 10,500 yuan in her pocket. She was originally from Fujian town, and the man she married was also a well-known hooligan in Fujian town. At this moment, she ran all the way home. Usually, it would take her 15 minutes to walk, but this time, it only took her 5 minutes to run back. So much money. Photo. As long as she could find the photo, the money would be hers. She rummaged through her graduation photos, family photos, and group photos. In the end, Xie Sifeng realized in despair that she did not have a single photo of Yi Qian. Not a single photo. It's over, her money is gone. Xie Sifeng, who was holding a pile of things, was so angry that she threw all the things in her hands to the ground when she thought of those hands flying away from her. No, she had to get her hands on Yi Qian's photos. She had to get her hands on them. Who would have Yi Qian's photo? Who was the best friend of Yi Qian in junior high? And Jiasin? Her eyes brightened and then suddenly extinguished. She had heard that Unyielding had settled down in Xiang City, and was not in the town. Who else? Who else? It was a cold day, and Sifeng was pacing back and forth in her dilapidated house. It was a 2-story red brick house built in the 90s. The outside was covered with white rectangular tiles, and the inside was painted with white lime powder. Only the first few rooms were well lit, and the room where Sifeng kept her stuff was the darkest room in the house. Standing in the dimly lit room, Sifeng was so anxious that her facial features were distorted. It seemed that her whole person was emitting a cold and gloomy aura. Who else would have Yi Qian's photo? Sifeng racked her brain. Finally, she thought of a person, their former class teacher, Teacher Ku, who was later fired. Chapter 5607. Teacher Ku was no longer a teacher, and no one called her a teacher anymore. She was a villager in Fujian town. Back then, she had been expelled by the school because of a public announcement. Therefore, the entire town knew that Teacher Ku had been expelled for malfeasance, but no one knew why. Some said that she had offended someone she should not have offended and was kicked out. Some said that she could no longer survive in the school because she did not have enough knowledge and could no longer teach middle school students. However, this guess was quickly rejected because even if she could no longer teach middle school students, she could still teach elementary school students. There was no need to expel her. Most of the residents leaned towards the third theory. They said that she had embezzled money and was discovered by the school leaders. Then, someone reported her and she was expelled. That year, rumors about Teacher Ku spread like wildfire and became the gossip of every household. The parents who had given her gifts remained silent and did not participate in it. They did not have the guts to say anything for fear of implicating their children. However, those who had not given her gifts and had suffered losses at her hands almost all jumped out and everyone stepped on them. Therefore, Teacher Ku's life was very difficult in the past 2 years. Her son was disobedient and her husband did not return home. If they saw Teacher Ku again, any of Yi Qian's classmates would not be able to recognize her immediately. Even Sifeng was surprised when she saw the old woman in front of her and did not recognize her. "Why are you knocking on my door during the new year?" She opened the red mottled wooden door. Teacher Ku, who was now called Old Ku by the villagers, looked at the young person standing in front of her door. She did not recognize the student, Sifeng, immediately. Instead, her gaze fell on Li Qin, who was dressed fashionably and looked rich and elegant. She kept looking at her and squeezed out a smile. "Who is this? Why can't I recognize her? Which batch of students did I teach?" As for Sifeng, Teacher Ku directly ignored her and pretended that she did not exist. Sifeng, who was ignored, was not angry. She squeezed out a smile and greeted, "Teacher Ku, it's me, Sifeng. I was in the same class as Yi Qian and Yi Ying. Do you remember me? A teacher for a day, a father for life." Although Teacher Ku had a bad reputation, the students she had taught in the past did not hit her when she was down. They would still call her teacher when they saw her, but it depended on their attitude. Students like Unyielding, Zhang Wenjin, Zhang Na, Zhou Liao, Zhang Bin, and the others would all be respectful when they saw Teacher Ku. Zhang Bin, who was now a police officer, even came to visit with gifts before the new year. Sifeng, on the other hand, hadn't visited Teacher Ku even once. Even though her family was in the same town and village as Teacher Ku's family, and they were only about 1 kilometer apart, she hadn't taken the initiative to visit Teacher Ku even once. He was so poor that he couldn't even get by. How could he have the time to visit others? If it hadn't been for Li Qin, Sifeng wouldn't have thought of Mr. Ku. Teacher Ku recognized Sifeng. Hearing this, the bitter smile on his face deepened. "So it's Sifeng. Then, this must be Yi Ying. Wow, I told you that Yi Ying is the most promising one in your class. See, I didn't misjudge her. Come in and sit down. It's cold outside. Don't catch a cold." Teacher Ku still had a little impression of what Yi Ying looked like, but it had been more than 8 years. Teacher Ku was not confident that she could recognize Yi Ying at a glance. But she still remembered that Yi Ying and Xie Sifeng had a good relationship. Chapter 5608. The beautiful girl standing in front of his house was Yi Ying. There was no mistaking it. Xie Sifeng pursed her lips and said angrily, "She's not Yi Ying. Yi Ying is long gone. Does she have a future? How much money did you take from her family? Are you still thinking about it? Yi Zhifan has already fallen. What future does Yi Ying have? This is Yi Qian's university classmate. You were wrong in the past. Yi Qian is the most promising classmate in our class." At the mention of Yi Qian, Teacher Ku's expression changed. There was hatred, fear, and an indescribable mix of emotions. Yi Qian, that student, she really underestimated him. Back then, if she had given him a chance, maybe he wouldn't have ended up like this. No, she was a teacher back then. She was a student. Students should listen to their teachers. Yi Qian didn't listen to them at all. He caused trouble everywhere he went. He didn't learn good things at such a young age. He learned to write love letters to the teachers in the city. As a teacher, she should take care of such a student and not let him. Li Qin had been secretly observing the gray-haired Teacher Ku. She didn't miss any of the emotions in her eyes or on her face. When she saw the hatred, Li Qin's lips curled into a smile. Resentment, how interesting. A former teacher hated her own student. Then, what did Yi Qian do back then to make her own teacher hate him? It seemed that she could get everything she needed tonight. Li Jun, you lost. She didn't come here for nothing. She would know everything she needed to know today. She would get everything she wanted tonight. Photos? You're looking for Yi Qian's photos? Sitting in the dimly lit living room, Teacher Ku looked at Li Qin warily. She wasn't her student. She asked cautiously, "Since you're Yi Qian's university classmate, why are you looking for her photos? You spent the most time together during your 4 years in university. Logically speaking, you should have many photos of her." She was asking her to take care of her? She had stopped teaching a long time ago, and her reputation was already ruined. How could she have any photos? Before Li Qin could answer, Xie Sifeng, who was afraid that the money would fly away, hurriedly said, "Why do you care so much? She just wants a photo. She doesn't need you to do anything." After saying that, she muttered softly, "Weren't you quite brave in the past? Why are you getting smaller and smaller now? Since it's just a photo, and you're also Yi Qian's classmate, you can give it to me." "I don't have it with me." It wasn't that Teacher Ku was timid, but life had made her cautious. Who knew what he was up to when he suddenly came over to ask about the photos? Whatever they did had nothing to do with her, so she didn't want to get involved. On the way here, Xie Sifeng reminded Li Qin that the teacher was also a greedy person. Years ago, he was reported for being greedy and was expelled by the school. As a greedy person who lived in such a poor environment, Li Qin believed that the old woman in front of her, who was obviously smarter and more greedy than Xie Sifeng, wouldn't be able to get the photos she wanted so easily. Now, she knew that Yi Qian's classmate was about to find out where she lived. The only thing she lacked was a photo. She needed a photo to see what her father's murderer looked like. Whether it was the real murderer or not, there was no harm done. Wasn't there a saying? Chapter 5609. Oh, it was that phrase, "I'd rather kill 1,000 innocents than let the culprit go." It didn't matter whether the culprit was the culprit or not. As long as it was related to the culprit, she wouldn't let it go. What did she look like? She needed to know. "Ms. Ku, Yi Qian rarely takes photos. We haven't taken a photo with her since high school. Now, we need her photo to make a class growth video. We've collected almost everyone's photos except for Yi Qian's. I'm fine with any photo. Daily life photos, graduation photos, or ID photos. I'm fine with anything. This is..." Li Qin opened her bag and took out a stack of money. "This is a small token of my appreciation. I hope you don't mind. Just as Li Mi had guessed, greedy people would still be greedy even if they were old. Xie Sifeng's heart ached when she saw this. This was supposed to belong to her. It all belonged to her. Before Teacher Cook could reach out to take the money, she rolled her eyes and snatched it from Li Qin's hand. She put on a flattering smile and said, "My teacher is blind now. I'll give it to her later, I'll give it to her later. That old thing. She used to be so biased. Ha, how could she deserve 10,000 yuan? Giving her 500 yuan was already very good." Li Qin didn't move. Ms. Ku, who had been staring at the 10,000 yuan, didn't move either. She just smiled. "Xie Sifeng, you're all grown up now. You're different from before. Sai, I used to think that you were useless. First, you followed Yi Ying and bullied Yi Qian. Later, Yi Qian slowly grew up and was no longer afraid of you. You didn't dare to bully Yi Qian anymore. I think you're nothing in this lifetime. You can't compare to Yi Ying, Yi Qian, and even more so, you can't compare to this young lady in front of you. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. No matter how powerful Xie Sifeng was, she couldn't be more powerful than the old ginger." Xie Sifeng was trembling with anger, but she didn't dare to offend Mr. Ku in front of Li Qin. She was afraid that Li Qin would give all the money in her bag to Mr. Ku. Even without Li Qin's help, the angry Xie Sifeng reluctantly handed the money to Mr. Ku. She gritted her teeth and said in her native dialect, "You old bastard, sooner or later, you'll ruin yourself." Teacher Ku, who was at least 10 years older than his actual age, took the money and smiled coldly. "You're so sensible. You know how to be filial to your teacher." However, what Li Qin didn't expect was that after spending 10,000 yuan, what she got was a picture of a junior high school student. It was black and white, about an inch in size, yellowish, and had white hair. "You're right, Yi Qian. She doesn't like to take photos, but she doesn't have the money to take photos back then." Teacher Ku pointed at the small black and white photo in Li Qin's hand with her blackened fingernails. A trace of old resentment flashed through her cloudy eyes. "I heard that she didn't even take a graduation photo. It's hard for you to find her photo. You don't have it in the school either. Don't waste your effort." If it weren't for the fact that her explanation made sense, Li Qin would have thought that the old woman in front of her was teasing her. Even if the person in the photo was Yi Qian, now that she saw the real Yi Qian, it would be difficult for her to recognize him. Long hair, gloomy and timid eyes, a girl who looked like an ant. Could she be the murderer of her father? Li Qin suddenly had doubts. Chapter 56:10. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56:10. Betrayal Planning, Urban Romance. Chapter 56:10. Betrayal. To have a plan. Li Qin stayed in Fujian town for 3.5 days. After she came out, she was taken to Shuku village by Xie Sifeng. However, Xie Sifeng, who had never been to Shuku village, did not know where Yi Qian lived. What they didn't know was that when Xie Sifeng got out of the car and asked about Yi Qian's home using her hometown dialect as a junior high school classmate, the tight-lipped villagers of Shuku village directly used the excuse that Yi Qian had moved out of the village a long time ago and didn't have a home in the village as an excuse. Aunt Yu and Aunt Zhang, who were good at arguing and scolding, came forward and dismissed them. The officers in the army had warned the villagers that their Shuku village's Yi Qian was now an extraordinary person. She was a soldier who threw her head away, sprinkled hot water, and defended the country. If anyone from the outside came to inquire about Yi Qian's whereabouts or where she lived, all the villagers would give the same answer, and dismiss the outsider with the excuse that they were not sure. The officers in the army had said that only those who were close to Yi Qian would enter the village to inquire about him, and they would also not inquire about where Yi Qian lived. Those who entered the village to ask around were not good people. It was very likely that they were spies. That's right, it was very likely that he was a spy. The villagers of Shuku village, which was very close to the army, had always been very vigilant. Even if Xie Sifeng asked around in her native language, the villagers did not let down their guard. He even waited for Xie Sifeng to sit in the sedan chair. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. After the car left, village chief Zhang Difu immediately reported to the army. Auntie Yu had even found out Xie Sifeng's name. In less than 5 minutes, the military already knew about it. At this time, it was already the evening of the 3rd day of the 1st lunar month. Li Jinyan sent Nian Nian home. Xia Jinyuan also left Dangue Garden in the afternoon. Yi Qian received a call from the military at home. Xie Sifeng asked about my address? Yi Qian furrowed his brows slightly. I don't have any contact with her. Our relationship in junior high was terrible. I'm afraid there's more to her asking about me. The person on the phone with Yi Qian was none other than Commander-in-Chief Xia. When he heard Yi Qian's words, he paused for a moment before saying, "They're already looking for Xie Sifeng's whereabouts. We'll confirm it after they find her." Looking for traces of Xie Sifeng? Yi Qian's expression turned cold. She didn't return home after leaving Shuku village. Yi Qian knew that Xie Sifeng was a villager from Fujian town. Commander-in-Chief Xia said in a low voice, "Yes, from the village to Fu town, it took 45 minutes. When the team received the call from village chief Zhang Difu and immediately sent troops to intercept them, the only difference was the distance between the team and the village. The soldiers drove very fast and shortened the distance by a large margin. However, we didn't see the white sedan that the villagers were talking about. This meant that the person in the car had found Xie Sifeng, and Xie Sifeng had come to find her as a classmate." Yi Qian pursed his lip. "If someone is asking about my whereabouts through Xie Sifeng, there must be traces of their movements in town. We can ask around in town to see if anyone has met a foreigner. We're already investigating. In the entire town, only the town gate has a single surveillance camera. The team is checking the surveillance footage now. You're in the capital now, so you need to be more careful." Commander-in-Chief Xia called Yi Qian for 2 reasons. First, to tell Yi Qian that someone was asking about her whereabouts. Second, to tell Yi Qian to be more vigilant. If someone went into the village to ask around, it meant that someone was watching her. Her identity was unknown and needed to be investigated. However, Xie Sifeng seemed to have disappeared into thin air. They couldn't find her until the next day. All the surveillance footage was retrieved, but unfortunately, a few days ago, the surveillance camera was damaged by a few children from the town. When the staff on duty wasn't paying attention, they used a bamboo pole to break the camera. If the team hadn't gone to retrieve the surveillance footage, the staff wouldn't have known that the camera was damaged. Chapter 56:11. Xie Sifeng seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There was no trace of her in town. The lady boss of the wholesale store saw the soldiers coming to question the young woman who had appeared in her store yesterday. The lady boss was so scared that her hands trembled. She told her what she had said last night and what the young and rich woman had asked. The lady boss told her everything and recalled everything carefully, afraid that she would miss something important. She didn't ask anything. She just asked where her classmate Yi Qian lived. I told her that there weren't many families with the surname Yi in Fujian town and none of their children had been admitted to university. And as she spoke, the lady boss hurriedly bent down and took out the phone book of the whole town that she had shown Li Qin yesterday. I also showed her this. She even flipped through it and didn't say anything. Then she left. At that time, there was a customer in my store, so I didn't pay much attention to where she went. Officer, I really don't know anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't know the person she asked. I saw that this girl was pretty and fashionable, so I wanted her to buy something from my store. That's why I chatted with her. Officer, did she do something wrong? Oh my God, it's the new year. Don't scare me. Many shops in Fujian town were not open for business during the new year. The streets were deserted. In addition, the town's roads were provincial roads, so there were many cars coming and going. No one paid attention to a car parked in front of the wholesale store. The lady boss had noticed Li Qin because Li Qin had come to her store to ask about something. If she hadn't come to her store, who would have known? Li Qin entered the town on the morning of New Year's Eve. That was the time when the town was crowded with cars and people. Li Qin parked her car in the town hospital and went shopping in the town. Even if someone passed by her, no one paid attention to her. The girls who had returned home from work were all dressed up nicely. No one paid attention to Li Qin. On the first day of the new year, the town was deserted. Li Qin spent the day in the car. On the second day of the new year, the town became lively again. Li Qin set her eyes on the best wholesale store. On the third day of the new year, Li Qin went to the store. Even after the people in the army left, the lady boss still didn't know what the young, rich, and beautiful girl had done wrong. Li Qin didn't get anything from the lady boss. The accompanying policeman went back to the police station and found a policeman who was good at drawing portraits. Under the description of the lady boss, the policeman drew a portrait. She's pretty. She's wearing a coat, high heels, and a scarf that's half of her nose. She didn't take off her scarf when she talked to me, so I thought she was cold. The proprietress recalled carefully. Li Qin had only met her face to face, and only the proprietress of the wholesale store had seen Li Qin. Unfortunately, Li Qin had covered half of her face with a scarf, so the proprietress didn't see everything clearly. In the end, the portrait was drawn. Although it couldn't be said to be 100% similar, it was still 60% similar. After finishing the painting, he confirmed it with the lady boss again. The people in the army also asked about it in detail before leaving. It was already 10 o'clock in the morning. Teacher Ku also welcomed the people from the army. He truthfully told them who Xie Sifeng had brought over last night. He also asked her for a photo. It was a photo of Xie Sifeng in junior high school, which was completely different from the current Yi Qian. In other words, Li Qin didn't get any useful information from Teacher Ku. Chapter 56:12. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56:12. Not kind, urban romance, GKICMS, target equals, _blank, friends please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. 11311/modules/article/home page of book library. Add bookmark recommend this book. Chapter 56:12. The unkind during this trip, Li Qin's biggest gain was knowing that Yi Qian lived in Shuku village. She didn't even find out the exact location of the village, and immediately drove away. As for where Xie Sifeng was, she had already entered Anyang City, and was heading towards the southern province. She had no idea that the rich man sitting beside her had already wanted to kill her countless times. Li Qin restrained herself. If they were in Melibon, Xie Sifeng would not have survived the previous night. From last night to this morning, Li Qin had been driving without any rest. She had to leave the southern province immediately. The sooner she left, the safer she would be. Xie Sifeng, who was sitting in the car, was still holding the money Li Qin gave her. She was sleeping soundly, unaware of the wind and rain outside. Seeing this, Li Qin, who was driving, had a murderous look in her eyes. Li Qin had her own reasons for bringing Xie Sifeng along. When Xie Sifeng got in the car and told Li Qin that the villagers of Shuku village all mentioned that Yi Qian had not returned to the village for a long time. Even when his house collapsed, no one cared about it. The cunning Li Qin immediately realized that something was wrong. The villagers all spoke in unison. From this, it could be seen that someone had specifically instructed the villagers. Friends please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Since it was a special order, they would definitely pay attention to strangers who entered the village to inquire about Yi Qian. Li Qin, who had received special training, was a meticulous person. Realizing that these villagers had been specially instructed, she did not stay any longer and immediately drove away. She was worried that she would be caught if she stayed any longer. Naturally, he would also instruct the villagers to report to the higher-ups immediately if they discovered anyone asking about Yi Qian's whereabouts. There was no need to think too deeply about it. Just a little thought was enough. Li Qin still needed Xie Sifeng to fend off unknown dangers. Therefore, she had been taking Xie Sifeng with her ever since they left Shueiko village. Only when Xie Sifeng was no longer useful would Li Qin abandon her. At that time, whether Xie Sifeng lived or died, it was all in Li Qin's hands. On the outskirts of Beijing, on the road where old 5th Xia Yunin lived, Commander-in-Chief Xia said to Yi Qian as he walked, "His awareness of anti-reconnaissance is very strong." He got off the car from Xie Sifeng to ask around, but to no avail. When he heard that the villagers were trying to unify their statements, he immediately became vigilant and left Shuku village. He also left Fujian town overnight and headed to Anyang city. The target should have stayed in Anyang city for quite some time. Just in case, she planned her escape route in advance and left immediately after entering Anyang city. She has a plan, a purpose, and a strong awareness of anti-reconnaissance. We are now certain that she could be Li Qin, who entered the country under a different identity. She has no criminal record at the moment. Although Xie Sifeng is missing, there is no definite news that she has been killed. Therefore, even if we have half of Li Qin's face in our hands, we can't make a national arrest warrant. The police will also not issue a national arrest warrant because of our suspicions. If she has committed a crime, or if something has happened to Xie Sifeng, then the police will step in. Today was the 4th day of the Chinese New Year. It was Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan's engagement day. However, the first thing they talked about on the day of the engagement was Li Qin. Yi Qian pursed his lips slightly. "We must find Xie Sifeng. We can't let her be in danger." Li Qin was going after her, so Yi Qian could not implicate Xie Sifeng. Li Qin had a strong awareness of anti-reconnaissance. Coupled with Li Chuhai's character, it was unlikely that his children would be kind. Since the engagement ceremony would be a little unique, it would also allow the elders of both parties to have a better understanding of their granddaughter-in-law and prospective grandson-in-law. Wouldn't everyone be happy? As for Yi Qian, she had never seen Xia Jinyuan ride a horse before. When he found out that Xia Yunin would arrange for him to compete with others, Yi Qian was immediately very interested. After the equestrian competition, it would be the shooting competition between her and Xia Jinyuan. Coincidentally, old Master Xia was very interested. Master Xia and old Madame Xia were also very interested. The engagement ceremony, which was supposed to be a little formal, was now carried out in this relaxed and cheerful competition. Old Master Xia did not come out. He was sitting in a small 3-story building built at the racecourse, drinking tea and looking outside. Xia Yunin had already asked the staff to clear the snow on the racecourse. It was enough for the contestants to ride their horses and have a hearty competition. Xia Yunin glanced at her cousin, who was still choosing a horse, and said to his friends, "You guys, don't go easy on him. The elders in my family all have sharp eyes. They can tell if you are going easy on him or not. My grandfather is not lying to you. It is a piece of cake for him to ride a horse now." Xia Yunin reminded her friends. Xia Jinyuan said to Yi Qian, who was approaching, "They have never seen me ride a horse before. Today, I have to win a good match for our engagement ceremony." Chapter 56:14. Yi Qian didn't feel that her engagement needed to be icing on the cake. To her, a happy family was the most important thing. But when she saw Xia Jinyuan's drive to perform well, Yi Qian felt that it was very rare. The Xia Jinyuan she knew had always been mature and steady, especially in front of outsiders. He was the most serious and proper person. He was so calm and composed that it was as if nothing could interest him. It was as if everything was already in his hands and there was no need for him to fight for it. This time, however, he was eager to give it a try and perform well. Yi Jian felt that it was a rare sight. It was as if he had taken stimulants. He didn't stop for a moment. His handsome face also had a deep smile that didn't disappear from the corners of his mouth for even a second. It had been more than 2 hours since he picked her up from Dangue Garden to the racecourse, but he was still in a state of excitement. She could feel his good mood even from a distance. Her Captain Xia was very happy about the engagement. Her Captain Xia was also very happy about the horse race. The engagement was a good day for both of them, so he was very happy. As for the horse race, Yi Qian turned around and looked at the 3-story villa that was convenient to watch the race. There, her father, grandfather, and family Xia's elders were sitting together and chatting happily. As for her Captain Xia, he wanted to perform well in front of the elders. To be precise, he wanted to perform well in front of his father-in-law. As she gently stroked the horse, she joked, "You want to perform well so badly. Are you afraid that you won't be able to explain to my father when you lose?" She did not know how many flowers her Captain Xia had added to her life. She was already very satisfied and happy. If I lose the race in front of my father-in-law, it's not a matter of whether I can explain to him or not. I'm worried that my father-in-law will go back on his word and marry his precious daughter to a useless man. This was a matter of a man's dignity. He had to win, and he had to win beautifully. Yi Qian smiled and looked over. My father is not that shallow. If you lose, he will think that you are useless. Actually, you are the one who wants to win. Don't mention my father. Of course I want to win, because I need to perform well in front of my father-in-law. Xia Jinyuan found it hard to explain this to Yi Qian. His little fox was a down-to-earth person who didn't care about formalities. If he explained, she would probably think that he was overthinking things. He didn't think about anything else. He just wanted to perform well in front of his father-in-law. Yi Qian did not understand, but seeing how serious Xia Jinyuan was, he wanted to tease her. Sigh, one is marked by the company one keeps, and one is marked by the company one keeps. Now, she had also learned bad things. Xia Jinyuan, who wanted to perform well in front of his father-in-law, did not know that Yi Qian was teasing him. After he finished speaking seriously, he said, Lao Wu has set up the first prize. I heard it's a jade guanyin. If I win, I'll give it to Dad. From his future father-in-law to his father-in-law to his father, the way he addressed Xia Jinyuan was getting closer and closer with each passing day. This time, he was not just excited. He was taking this race very seriously. When Yi Qian saw that he was so serious that he didn't even notice that she was teasing him, she couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Could it be that he was so happy that his brain was not working properly? Xia Jinyuan, who didn't sleep much last night, was constantly in a state of excitement. Whenever he thought about how the girl he had been guarding after their engagement would be his fiancée, and how she would be his for the rest of their lives, he would probably be more than happy to do it if Yi Qian asked him to run 10 laps around the racecourse. Chapter 56:15. On the other end, Commander-in-Chief Xia had already picked up the phone and was walking straight towards his lover, who was talking to a horse. After taking a few steps, Commander-in-Chief Xia suddenly stopped in his tracks. He thought to himself, if I walk over now, I might disturb the couple. Commander-in-Chief Xia then turned around and walked towards the villa. As he walked, he dialed Xia Jinyuan's number. Xia Jinyuan was chatting with Yi Qian about equestrian skills. When he picked up the phone, he let out a soft sigh before he spoke. Yi Qian hadn't heard that Xia Jinyuan's voice was slightly tense, but Commander-in-Chief Xia could tell. After being slightly surprised, Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't give Xia Jinyuan any face and laughed out loud. "It's rare to see you nervous." "That's right." At this moment, apart from being excited, Xia Jinyuan was really nervous. He didn't know why he was nervous. He had been hiding it from everyone, including Yi Qian, but he didn't expect that he couldn't hide it from his old man. Xia Jinyuan quickly glanced at Yi Qian, who was combing the horse's mane, and quietly retreated to the side. He calmly denied it. "I'm not nervous. I'm just very excited." "Is that so?" Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't believe him. Nobody knew a son better than his father. He could tell. If it were in the past, Commander-in-Chief Xia would definitely have argued with him. However, when he thought about how today was his son's big day, he decided to forget it. He would argue with him another day. "Tell Xiao Yi that Xie Sifeng has been found safe and sound." Commander-in-Chief Xia ended the call and walked towards the villa. Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Just now, he was a little worried that his old man, who liked to ruin his plans, would come and ruin his plans again. She then told Yi Qian that Xie Sifeng was safe and sound. Yi Qian, who had been thinking about Xie Sifeng all this time, heaved a long sigh of relief. "When I found out that Xie Sifeng was missing, I was so nervous. I was afraid that I would implicate the innocent. Thank goodness she's fine. Thank goodness." When she was young and ignorant, Xie Sifeng often bullied her and said a lot of unpleasant things. Even now, she had experienced school bullying. But now that some things had passed, Xie Sifeng no longer had any contact with her. In the end, she was implicated by her and felt uneasy. Xia Jinyuan laughed and said, "Someone went to inquire about your whereabouts. No matter how stupid they are, they wouldn't be so stupid as to commit murder and arson. She sneaked into our country, so naturally, she couldn't be too high profile. She had to sneak in and leave quietly. If she really killed Xie Sifeng, it would be the same as walking into a trap. Li Chuhai wouldn't be able to raise such a stupid child." Xia Jinyuan and the military only thought of Li Qin. Who was the one who asked about Yi Qian's whereabouts and past? At present, only Li Qin and Li Jun were most likely to enter our country to search for Yi Qian's whereabouts. Now that Xie Sifeng had been found and confirmed to be safe and sound, Yi Qian, who had nothing on his mind, said happily, "Captain Xia, can you please make my father happy? I'll leave this important task to you. Can you make my father rest assured and leave his daughter in your care? Can you?" There were a few more "can-ts" that he didn't say out loud. Xia Jinyuan, who realized that he was being teased, finally reacted. He raised his eyebrows and interrupted Yi Qian. "Are you teasing me?" "I'm not teasing you. Didn't you say that just now?" Yi Qian smiled until his eyes curved like the crescent moon. His eyes were as bright as the stars in the cold night. The joy that came from inside him was the same as Xia Jinyuan's. She was very happy that today was a good day for her and Xia Jinyuan. Chapter 56-16. An engagement, also known as a marriage contract, involved the signing of a marriage contract and the exchange of gift. Although there was no marriage contract, there was still the exchange of gift. Moreover, this was a contractual act. From now on, the two of them were no longer ordinary lovers, but had become a fiancé and fiancée of a family. Their identities had undergone a substantial change, and this was the biggest difference after the engagement. In the future, if anyone wanted to introduce a boyfriend to Yi Qian, he could simply say, "She even has a fiancé." This would definitely extinguish any thoughts of introducing him. If he said, "She already has a boyfriend," the person introducing him might even say, "It's just a boyfriend, not an engagement or marriage. You can always look at him first." This was the biggest difference. After the engagement, it was as if there was an additional label on them, a label that indicated who they belonged to. This label was the one that Xia Jinyuan dreamed of. Xia Jinyuan, who was about to receive this label, glanced around and saw that there was no one around. Old Fifth was very perceptive, and had already invited his friends to the stables on the other side, leaving the largest space for his brother. Just based on this tactfulness, Xia Jinyuan felt that if he didn't do something that could only be done between the two of them, he would be letting down Old Fifth's arrangement. After looking around and confirming that there was no one around, Xia Jinyuan began to move. First, he pulled Yi Qian, who was smiling smugly because he had already discovered that Yi Qian was teasing him, to the side. Afraid that Yi Qian would notice that he had other intentions, he pretended to bring Yi Qian to the stables to look at the other horses. As for Yi Qian, although she didn't know how to ride a horse, she was very interested in it. Because she had won a small round earlier, she let her guard down and let Xia Jinyuan lead her with a smile. After a few steps, the world spun around her, and she was pressed against the wall by Xia Jinyuan. What greeted her was an earth-shattering kiss. In the villa, Old Master Xia said to Old Master, "The racecourse looks quite decent. If it weren't for the fact that I'm already a pile of old bones, I'd want to ride it myself." He was well aware of his own status. Although Old Master Xia's health was not bad, he knew that he would not be able to withstand riding a horse in the middle of winter. Old Madame Xia had been worried that Old Master Xia would ride a horse in a moment of happiness. Seeing that he knew what he was doing, she sighed in relief. At least he has some self-awareness. Otherwise, I would have a headache. Riding a horse now as a matter of the young people. You just sit in the house and watch. Although the racecourse looks decent, I don't know how good Fifth Brother's friends are at equestrian. If they're just average. The old lady smiled and said to the old man, "This time, I'm really not trying to be high-profile. Sixth Brother's equestrian skills are extraordinary. When he was in high school, his school organized a summer camp abroad. The students there came to an equestrian show. At that time, I don't know what exactly happened, so Sixth Brother picked a horse and won all by himself." Old Madame Xia couldn't hide her joy at the mention of the past. When Old Master Xia heard this, he laughed and said, "It looks like you taught Old Sixth personally. That's why he's so good." "I'm right." "That's right. Among all my grandchildren, only Old Sixth's horsemanship was taught by me personally. Although this kid was naughty when he was young, he had some talent in horsemanship. He was brave and wasn't afraid. I carried him on a horse for the first time. I was happy to see him and taught him step by step. At that time, my wife was against it. Later on, when he became famous overseas, she said that he was good at horsemanship." Chapter 56:17. Old Madame Xia also laughed and said, "At that time, he said that he wanted to teach Sixth Brother how to ride a horse. I even said that he wouldn't be able to ride a horse in the future, so what's the use of learning it? It can be seen that when it comes to learning something, you really can't think that it's useful from the start. You have to learn it seriously until the day it comes in handy. That's when it's useful." Old Master Fu agreed with her and nodded with a smile. "That's right. Sometimes, if you have too many goals, you won't be able to concentrate. It's better to abandon all distracting thoughts and learn it seriously. I don't expect it to be useful, but who knows, it might come in handy one day. Isn't that right? Only by learning seriously and properly can you truly learn well. Don't think about what you can do in the future just because you've learned it now. No one can predict what you'll become in the future. It's better to be down to earth and steady." Master Xia once said these words to Xia Jinyuan, and Xia Jinyuan remembered them. Later, Xia Jinyuan told Yi Qian, and Yi Qian remembered them. Xiao Yi is also down to earth and sincere. She's also very calm and steady. She can restrain Sixth Brother's occasional antic. In the future, Old Master Fu and I can rest assured that Sixth Brother will be taught by Xiao Yi. As for the couple, Old Fu, we've known each other for decades. Today, I'm here to tell you the truth. If Old Sixth does anything wrong in the future, we'll definitely stand together with Xiao Yi and face the enemy together. Until we defeat them, Xiao Yi will be my biological granddaughter from now on. If anyone dares to bully her, I'll be the first to rush up and teach them a lesson. There was a hidden meaning in her words. Old Master Fu naturally understood what old Madame Xia meant. She was referring to sixth brother's biological mother, Madame Xiao, who abandoned him years ago. Madame Xiao had stopped Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian. Yi Qian didn't tell old Master Fu because he didn't want him to worry. He only told Xia Jinyuan that, if this matter wasn't handled properly, it would affect the reputation of the family Xia. In the end, he asked old Master Fu and old Madame Xiao to have a good talk with Madame Xiao. With the help of the elders, Madame Xiao couldn't do anything. Therefore, after Xia Jinyuan returned to the family Xia, he immediately told old Master Fu and Madame Xiao. Just as Yi Qian said, she was Xia Jinyuan's biological mother could make mistakes, but as a son, he couldn't make any mistakes. Even to pursue her own happiness back then, to pursue Xia Jinyuan. Now that she was back Xia Jinyuan as a son, Xia was to blame. To say, to be blamed to Xia Jinyuan, Xia was to be. Yi Jian did not want anyone to make things difficult for her man because of Madame Xiao in the future, so she suggested that Xia Jinyuan go home and tell the two elders of the Xia family. To be sure. Old Master Fu understood what she meant. He smiled and said, I know how much you dote on Jane Eyre. Not only do you two dote on her, but all the elders in the family Xia dote on her as well. Don't worry, absolutely not. Chapter 56:18. The 10,000 miles red star lives up to your expectations. Chapter 56:18. Urban Romance. Jiechi family Xia wasn't an ordinary family. It was a prestigious family with many generations of talented people. A prestigious family like this was usually very strict. They knew how to deal with things and were very pragmatic. Old Master Fu and Master Xia had known each other for decades. Old Master Fu knew what kind of family Xia was. What reassured Old Master Fu the most was that family Xia treated people very seriously. Unlike some wealthy families who looked down on their daughters-in-law, family Xia didn't look down on their daughters-in-law. Instead, he really treated his daughters-in-law like his own daughter. Even if his son and daughter-in-law quarreled, he would scold his son first. How could old Master Fu not be reassured by such a family? He had agreed to Yi Qian's engagement early because family Xia couldn't be trusted. Old Master Fu's heart-to-heart talk made Master Xia and old Madame very happy. Looking at the two fathers who were chatting happily, old Master Fu said to old Master Fu, Xiao Yi isn't the type to do whatever she wants. She will also restrict sixth brother in certain aspects. The two of them, one quiet and one active, are the most compatible couple. Yuxing only has one daughter, Xiaoye. It wasn't easy for him to reunite with her, but she was engaged to my sixth son at such a young age. It's also because Yuxing values my sixth son that he could entrust Xiaoye to him. Later, my sixth son must kowtow 3 times to thank his father-in-law. Family Xia also had the rules of his hometown. You should pay attention to your eyes after reading for a long time. Even if they recognized their family and got engaged, they would become a family. Then, they would have to change the way they addressed them. They couldn't call them uncle or auntie anymore. After old Master Fu finished speaking, old Madame Fu laughed. I won't hide it from you. My sixth brother has already spoken. This morning, before dawn, he was sitting alone in the hall, waiting for us to wake up. His father even laughed and scolded him for being immature when he's about to get engaged. When I heard that, I laughed and scolded his mother. Not only did old Six wake up early, we also woke up early happily. Today, old Madam and old Master Li were very happy. Among all their grandchildren, they were the only ones who were engaged. Last night, Xia Jinyuan did not sleep at all. Old Master Li and old Madam Li had not slept at all. In the wee hours of the morning, the old madam closed her eyes for a while and suddenly woke up. She glanced at the window and found that it was bright. The old madam was shocked and thought that she had overslept. She hurriedly woke up old Master Xia, who had finally fallen asleep. When he looked at the time, it wasn't even 2:15 in the morning. As for why the window was so bright, it was probably because he had forgotten to close the curtains before going to bed last night. The starlight and lamplight outside made it seem as if the sky was already bright. The elders of the two families were about to reveal everything to each other. The two fathers also revealed everything to each other. Ever since they decided to get engaged, Father Fu and Commander-in-Chief Xia immediately called each other. When Commander-in-Chief Xia found out that the Fu family had agreed to the engagement, he immediately dialed Father Fu's cell phone number. The two in-laws had not met this year, so they chatted for a long time over the phone. How could they talk in detail over the phone? There were some things that needed to be said clearly in person. Commander-in-Chief Xia also said some heartfelt words to his in-laws. At this time, the two of them were no longer leaders with extremely high military rank. They were just ordinary fathers who worried about their children and thought about them. Old Master Li was familiar with Old Master Li and Old Madam Li, but Father Fu's relationship with Commander-in-Chief Xia was not as close as his father's generation. Although they had known each other for a long time, they were not from the same family. Therefore, they were only acquaintances. Later, because of Yi Qian and Yi Qian's mother, the Red Plum Martyr, the two fathers contacted each other more often. However, they would only call each other for work. After talking about work, they would chat for a while. Chapter 56:19. Both of them were introverted and not good at expressing themselves, so they didn't have a deeper conversation. Now that they were in-laws, the pragmatic Commander-in-Chief Xia directly said to Father Fu, "I've always treated Xiao Yi like my own daughter. Back then, when Xiao Yi was still in her 3rd year of high school, I told Xiao Yi that if Old Six did anything wrong, she didn't have to be polite. She could beat him or scold him as she liked. I wouldn't say anything. Xiao Yi was scared by me at that time. She sat in the car and thought I was joking with her. Actually, I wasn't joking. I just felt that Old Six needed someone to teach him a lesson. Xiao Yi has a very stable personality and is not used to sloppy behavior. Old Six can only be obedient in her hands. In the future, if Old Six does anything wrong, regardless of right or wrong, I will stand on Xiao Ye's side unconditionally. Xiao Yi can teach him a lesson however she wants. I won't say anything and won't interfere. If she wants to beat him, I can even pass him a whip or something. If she wants to scold him, I'll let Old Six squat in the corner and listen obediently. If he makes Xiao Yi angry or unhappy, we'll teach him a lesson however you want." Commander-in-Chief Xia was a soldier. A soldier was strict and resolute. If he said one thing, it was one. If he said two things, it would be two. If he said one thing, it would be one. If he said two things, it would be two. If he said one sentence, it would be one sentence. What he said now was absolutely not empty words. Father Fu initially thought that this in-law of his was just being polite. However, after listening to the end, he realized that the reason was not because he was being polite. He really meant what he said. After Commander-in-Chief Xia finished speaking, Father Fu drank several mouthfuls of wine to suppress the surprise in his heart. However, when he thought about how Commander-in-Chief Xia had said something similar before, Father Fu calmed down and didn't feel surprised anymore. However, Commander-in-Chief Xia still looked at him for a while. He smiled and said, "I really didn't say anything out of courtesy. Everything I said was from the bottom of my heart. Whether the days are good or bad, it's all because of the two of them. As parents, we only hope that the couple will have a smooth life. If both sides can take a step back and think about each other, then we really have nothing to worry about. Now, this was what he was supposed to say. Father Fu smiled and said, "Sixth brother is the only good man I can trust to entrust Jane Eyre to. He's been the one who's been helping Jane Eyre grow up. It can be said that sixth brother is partly responsible for Jane Eyre's success today. If you say that sixth brother will make Jane Eyre unhappy or angry, I don't believe it either. He dotes on my girl like she's the apple of his eye. I've seen it all with my own eyes, so I'm even more relieved to hand Jane Eyre over to him." Since he had already decided on his son-in-law, Father Fu naturally wouldn't be like before and pick on Xia Jinyuan from time to time. Family Xia treated his daughter like his own daughter, and he would also treat sixth brother like his own son. As a person, one couldn't have double standards, let alone favor one and discriminate against the other. The two fathers also chatted happily and laughed heartily from time to time. As Yi Qian's older brother, Li Jinyan was surrounded by Xia Jinyuan's older brothers. What were they talking about? Well, they were talking about how to make things difficult for Xia Jinyuan at the engagement ceremony and how to make the engagement ceremony more exciting. For example, when they were about to catch the ball, Family Xia's oldest brother should come out to stop them, while Family Xia's youngest brother should come out to stop them. Another example was when they were about to jump on the horse, they couldn't let sixth brother take the first place. As the older brother, he should also do his best to fight for the first place. Chapter 56:20. 10,000 miles of Red Star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 56:20. Love the fourth child, Xia Yuzheng, said to Li Jinyan, "Sixth brother has been a tyrant since he was young. The brothers in the family have always given in to him. Today, we're planning to get back at him for all the losses we suffered at his hands when we were young. At the same time, we can help sister-in-law suppress sixth brother's arrogance and make him behave himself in front of sister-in-law. If sister-in-law tells him to go east, he will only dare to go east. He will never dare to go west. You are Xiao Ye's brother. Do you have a better idea?" Li Jinyan felt that Xia Jinyuan's brothers were all great and their ideas were great. Without saying anything, Li Jinyan gave Xia Jinyuan's brothers a thumbs up. Xia Yiwei could only watch helplessly. Seeing that her husband, Ho Zi, was having fun with the twins and was not paying attention to them, she stood up for Xia Jinyuan and said, "You brothers, take it easy. Today is sixth brother's engagement day. All of you are thinking about is how to get back at him for all the losses you suffered in the past. If you ruin sixth brother's plans, how are you going to deal with the aftermath? You guys know that Grandpa and Grandma are so happy because of sixth brother's engagement that they didn't sleep the whole night. Today, you guys, please take note of your eyes after reading for a long time. If you dare to do anything at sixth brother's engagement, Grandpa and Grandma will be the first ones who won't let you off. Think about it carefully and see if it's more important to get back at them or Grandpa and Grandma. Don't lose the big picture because of the small." These words also touched the hearts of the family Xia brothers. Li Jinyan said calmly, "It's not that we are making things difficult for you. At most, it's a test. The harder the test, the more we can see sixth brother's true ability. I believe that sixth brother also wants to show off his skills in front of us family so that we can see what he is capable of. In my opinion, the brothers of family Xia are not trying to make things difficult for him. They are just helping their brother perform." Or did he touch the hearts of the family Xia brothers? Xia Yiwei could tell that this brother-in-law was deliberately making things difficult for his younger sister. What else could she say? Naturally, she couldn't say anything. She smiled at Li Jinyan. "Jinyan is right. Our sixth brother should perform well." While the elders of the family Xia family were trying to convince the Fu family to hand over Yi Qian to sixth brother, the brothers of the family Xia family were secretly plotting how to test their own brothers. The back wall was already on fire. It all depended on whether Xia Jinyuan could hold on. Xia Jinyuan, who had no idea what was going on, was very pleased with himself. He was even teaching Yi Qian how to ride a horse. Yi Qian, who had never ridden a horse before, learned very seriously. After a short while, he was able to jog a lap on his own. After jogging a few laps, Yi Qian felt that jogging in the stable was meaningless. She wanted to run outside. Of course, Xia Jinyuan agreed. Today, his fiancée could do whatever she wanted. She said that riding a horse was dangerous. After all, they had experienced many dangerous things. Family Xia and the elders of the Fu family saw Yi Qian's handsome figure on the horse. Xia Jinyuan led the horse out of the stable. They probably trusted Xia Jinyuan very much. None of them thought that it was dangerous and stopped Xia Jinyuan because Xia Jinyuan didn't know how to do it. Everyone was smiling as they looked at the two people who had deep feelings for each other from afar. Family Xia and the elders of the Fu family laughed. However, Madame Xiao couldn't laugh. She was so angry that her whole body trembled slightly. Or could it be that they knew in their hearts but did not stop it? Instead, they casually found a wife for Ah Yuan and sent her away? Were they going to be so cheap to Ah Yuan? It was true that she was in the wrong as a mother. She was not qualified, but Ah Yuan was their grandson. Could it be that she, as a mother, was in the wrong and they were going to blame it on Ah Yuan? Madame Zhao's face was so pale that there was no trace of blood. What do you think is going on? As a mother, how could she not know that her son is engaged? If you didn't tell her, she wouldn't even have heard of it. Mrs. Li was furious. Her face was full of anger as she said, "Family Xia is truly heartless. How could she not inform her son about his engagement?" Then, she asked Mrs. Qin, "May I know where they are getting engaged?" No matter how close Mrs. Qin was to Mrs. Li, she knew that this was not something she could casually reveal. Chapter 56-22. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-22. Betrayal from restlessness to urban romance to jikikms. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Target equals _blank 11311/modules/article/home page of books. Add bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 56-22. Betrayal to be restless. Mrs. Qin only wanted to chat with her for a while, but she didn't expect the person sitting across from her to be the mother of her son's family Xia. This was really, at this moment, Madame Qin was a little annoyed at herself for saying too much. She only wanted to tell Madame Li that she didn't have to worry about Yi Qian and Li Jinyan having anything to do with each other. Because they were siblings, it wasn't as bad as Madame Li made it out to be. Now was not the time to explain. It was better to send Ms. Xiao away first. Mrs. Qin furrowed her brows and thought for a while before saying, "I didn't hear the exact location of the engagement. I didn't pay much attention to this matter. I only heard about it from Old Master and Old Madam." She then said to Madame Xiao, "I'm sorry, but I really don't know where the engagement will be held. But don't be too sad. This engagement isn't necessarily a bad thing. This child, Yi Qian, is actually a good person. She was Old Master Fu's biological granddaughter. How could she not be good? In the past, it was because she listened to other people's words that she, Mrs. Qin, still felt her face burn when she thought about all the things she had done in the past. More friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. What made her feel ashamed was that she had actually badmouthed Yi Qian in front of Old Master. She was really too ashamed to face Old Master. It was also because the old man had good self-restraint that he didn't argue with her. Because she had once said something bad about Yi Qian in front of old Master Fu and belittled Yi Qian, Mrs. Qin hadn't visited old Master Fu's home to give him a New Year's greeting. She was too ashamed to face old Master Fu. Old Master Qin and old Madame Qin also knew, so they didn't urge Mrs. Qin. The relationship between the two families was still there. If the daughter-in-law knew that she was wrong, she would go to the old man's house to ask for forgiveness. Mrs. Li was shocked by Mrs. Qin's words. She actually said that Yi Qian was actually a good person? Mrs. Qin, you're just too kind. Didn't you just accompany your grandfather and madam to the hospital? She did it on purpose to show off in front of them and make herself look good. You just remember it in your heart. Madam Li advised earnestly. Ordinary people really can't see through such a girl's mind. Even old people like us can be deceived by her if we're not careful. Although she is now engaged to family Xia's sixth son, Qin Xiu is only temporarily safe. With her promiscuous personality, would she be able to stay at home and watch over her family? I really won't. Aren't we going to parade some spare tire now? Just wait and see. As long as she's on good terms with old Master Qin and old Madame Qin, she'll continue to go in and out of the Qin family and continue to seduce Qin Xiu. She's so young, but she's already so scheming. It wasn't easy for her to climb up the Qin family's branch, so how could she let go so easily? Time will reveal a person's heart. She's sixth brother's fiancée now, but as time goes by, she'll be exposed. What if family Xia wants to break off the engagement? Shouldn't she be prepared in advance, just in case? You don't think that just because she's engaged to sixth brother, you'll be able to rest easy and have nothing to worry about. She's very powerful. She won't let go of the Qin family, family Xia, and Li family easily. Mrs. Qin was so restless that she wanted to leave as soon as possible. After knowing Yi Jian's identity, Madame Qin felt that Madame Li was exaggerating when she heard Yi Jian's words. Chapter 56-23. 10,000 miles of Red Star will live up to your expectations. Unreconciled, urban romance. JQI unreconciled the Li family. She really didn't know that she was trying to climb up the social ladder. After old man Li's death, the Li family was getting worse and worse. Even old Master Li said that the Li family would never be as glorious as when old man Li was still alive. As for the Fu family, old Master Fu was highly respected and had many students. He had a bright future ahead of him and could even lead the Fu family to greater heights. With Yi Qian, even if she grew up outside, she relied on her own abilities to get into the military academy. With the support of family Xia and the Fu family, she would have a bright future ahead of her. The current Yi Qian was no longer the Yi Qian of the past. Madame Li didn't know this, but she did. Madame Qin picked up her teacup and took a sip to moisten her mouth. She smiled and said, "That's someone else's problem. I don't have to worry about it anymore. No matter how scheming she is, she's still the daughter-in-law of family Xia. Master Xia and old Madame Xia both think that she's a good person. I think that we really misunderstood Yi Qian in the past. I'm afraid that she's not a scheming girl, and she's not someone who goes around climbing up the social ladder. Otherwise, why didn't old Madame and old Master Fu see through her? Why didn't Master Xia and old Madame Xia see through her? These four have been through countless ups and downs. They're much better at judging people and things than we are. If even they think that Yi Qian is a good person, then she might really be a good person." She wasn't like before when she was worried because of Madame Li's words. She was afraid that Yi Qian would hook up with Qin Xiu like Madame Li said. Yi Qian was old Master Fu's granddaughter. Take care of your eyes after reading for a long time. Did she still need to hook up with anyone? I really don't need it. Sigh, she couldn't say that Yi Qian was old Master Fu's granddaughter. She hoped that Madame Li would understand and stop bad-mouthing Yi Qian in the future. If the Fu family knew about it, she would not be in a good position either. As for Ms. Xiao, Mrs. Qin lowered her eyes slightly and had another plan in her mind. She was family Xia's biological mother. However, the family Xia knew that she was in the capital but did not inform her. From this, it could be seen that the family Xia did not care about Madame Xiao, and neither did the sixth family Xia. In that case, he couldn't have any deep friendship with this Madame Xiao. He needed to stay away from her. Du Jiai, who had been sitting next to Mrs. Qin and hadn't interjected, was now as anxious as a cat on a hot tin roof. While Mrs. Qin was still talking, she tried to interject a few times, but Mrs. Li kept hinting at her with her eyes. Now was not the time for Du Jiai to casually interject. Mrs. Li secretly glared at her daughter a few times. Deep down, she was not as calm as she appeared to be. She couldn't understand. After all her efforts, Mrs. Qin's impression of Yi Qian was extremely bad, and she hated her to the core. Why would she take the initiative to put in a good word for Yi Qian today? She even said that Yi Qian was a good person and that they might have misunderstood her in the past. She also said that the older generation thought that she was a good person, so of course she was a good person. These words could have come from anyone in the family Xia, but they should not have come from Mrs. Qin's mouth. Could it be that Yi Qian, that little b*tch, did something that made Mrs. Qin change her attitude towards her without her knowledge? Thinking of this, Madame Li's face was so gloomy that it seemed like water was about to drip out. Du Jiai, who had been stopped, was having a hard time holding it in. In the end, she thought about how Yi Qian was getting engaged to Xia Jinyuan today, and how she could no longer be Qin Xiu's girlfriend. With this thought, she suppressed the urge to badmouth Yi Qian. However, she was still unwilling. Chapter 56-24. The 10,000 Miles Red Star Lives Up to Your Expectations. Chapter 56-24. Love Mutual Exploitation, Urban Romance, GKICMS, Target equals _blank, please note, please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 Recommended Reading, Monster, 11311/modules/article/homepage, bookmark recommend this book, Chapter 56-24. Love Mutual Exploitation. An orphan from a rural village with no parents and no family background actually became the granddaughter-in-law of a family Xia. Wasn't this the real-life version of the ugly duckling? She had actually become Xia Jinyuan's fiancée. From now on, she had leaped into the Dragon's Gate. From now on, she had really become a phoenix. In the future, it would be even more difficult to knock her down. Li Qin, Li Jun, she had to get in touch with them as soon as possible. Right now, the ones who wanted to get rid of Yi Qian the most were the two of them. She could get someone else to do the dirty work for her. She didn't have to do it herself. Du Jiai secretly wanted to break her fingernails. Mrs. Qin, Mrs. Li, and Du Jiai all had their own thoughts. Mrs. Xiao also had her own thoughts. Since Mrs. Qin didn't tell her the address of Xia Jinyuan's engagement, she knew that she wouldn't be able to get any information about her son and Yi Qian from Mrs. Qin. After a long silence, she said to Mrs. Li, "Qinglan, I've troubled you again today. You've also worried so much for me. In the future, let's just leave it at that. If they want to keep it a secret, how would outsiders know? Although I'm a Yuan's biological mother, but..." As she spoke, tears began to fall from her eyes. Mrs. Xiao pulled out a tissue. Please note, please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 Recommendation. Monster. She gently wiped the corners of her eyes with a tissue and smiled bitterly, which made Mrs. Qin's heart ache. But after all, I've never raised him. How could there be any mother-son relationship? After speaking to Mrs. Li, she said to Mrs. Qin, "Mrs. Qin, I'm sorry about today. Qinglan asked you out because of me. I wanted to ask if you could help me find out about Yuan, so I asked Qinglan for help. Please forgive my rudeness, Mrs. Qin." "Ms. Xiao, you're too polite. You're Qinglan's friend, so naturally you're my friend. I feel guilty that I didn't help you today. Mrs. Chin naturally knew how to say such polite words, and she said them beautifully. Even though she had already made up her mind to stay away from Mrs. Xiao, at this moment, she still had a sympathetic look on her face. I really didn't expect you to be the mother of sixth brother's family Xia. If I had known, Sai, I would have asked Grandfather Qin and Madame Qin. I'm sorry, Ms. Xiao. I can't share your burden. Mrs. Xiao smiled bitterly and shook her head. Mrs. Qin, you're too polite. I'm the one who's disturbing you, yet you're here to apologize. I'm really ashamed. Sai, you're also a kind mother, but these children are sometimes really too stubborn. No matter what you say, they just can't be reasoned with. Take my family's Qin Xiu, for example. The topic had unknowingly turned to Qin Xiu, and Mrs. Li didn't even have a chance to interject. Mrs. Qin really didn't want to give Mrs. Li a chance to interrupt. She was afraid that Mrs. Li would ask her to call the two elders at home and ask them where the sixth son of the Xia family and Yi Jian were getting engaged. She didn't want to ask, but she also didn't want to embarrass Mrs. Li. Therefore, she might as well leave before the topic continued. Not only did she leave, but Mrs. Qin also planned to stay for a while longer before leaving. After about 5 minutes, Mrs. Qin received a call from her husband, Qin Dingkong. After chatting for a while, Mrs. Qin told him her location and ended the call. In less than 10 minutes, Qin Dingkong, who was wearing a suit and a long black woolen coat, pushed open the door to the tea room and elegantly came to pick up Mrs. Qin. Mrs. Qin stood up and left with an apologetic look on her face, leaving the two people with cold expressions. Chapter 56-25. 10,000 miles of Red Star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 56-25. Divorce Exin Urban Romance, JQA Chapter 56-25. Divorce Exin. After a long time, Mrs. Xiao said tiredly, Chenglan, Mrs. Qin won't help me. From the moment she refused to tell me where Yuan is, I knew she wouldn't help me. She won't help me because of you. This time, I've troubled you again. I've troubled you so much every time. Chenglan, I've troubled you too much. Mrs. Qin frowned slightly and thought for a while before saying, I didn't hear the exact location of the engagement. I didn't pay much attention to this either. I only heard about it from Old Master and Old Madam. She then said to Mrs. Xiao, I'm sorry, I really don't know where the engagement is. But don't be too sad. This engagement isn't necessarily a bad thing. Yi Qian is actually a good child. She was Old Master Fu's biological granddaughter. How could she not be good? In the past, she had listened to other people's words, so Mrs. Qin still felt her face burn when she thought about all the things she had done in the past. What made her feel even more ashamed was that she had actually said bad things about Yi Qian in front of Old Master Fu. She really couldn't face Old Master Fu anymore. Old Master Fu had good self-restraint and didn't argue with her. Take note, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. Mrs. Qin had spoken badly of Yi Jian in front of Old Master Fu and belittled Yi Jian because of her petty personality. Until now, Mrs. Qin had not visited Old Master Fu's house to pay him a New Year's greeting. She was too ashamed to face him. Old Master Qin and Old Madam Qin also knew, so they didn't rush Mrs. Qin. The relationship between the two families was still there. Her daughter-in-law knew she was wrong and would naturally go to Old Master Fu to ask for forgiveness. Mrs. Li was shocked by Mrs. Qin's words. She actually said that Yi Qian was actually a good person? Mrs. Qin, you're just too kind. Didn't you just accompany your grandfather and Madam to the hospital? She did it on purpose to show off in front of them and make herself look good. You just remember it in your heart. Madam Li advised earnestly, ordinary people really can't see through such a girl's mind. Even old people like us can be deceived by her if we're not careful. Although she is now engaged to family Xia's sixth son, Qin Xiu is only temporarily safe. With her promiscuous personality, would she be able to stay at home and watch over her family peacefully? I really won't. Aren't we going to parade some spare tire now? Just wait and see. As long as she has a good relationship with Old Master Qin and Old Madam Qin, she will continue to go in and out of the Qin family and continue to seduce Qin Xiu. She's so young, but she's so capable. It wasn't easy for her to climb up the Qin family's branch. How could she let go so easily? Time will reveal a person's heart. She's now Old Master Fu's fiancée, but as time passes, she'll be exposed. What if family Xia wants to break off the engagement? Shouldn't she be prepared in advance, just in case? You don't think that just because she's engaged to Old Master Fu, you'll be able to rest easy and have nothing to worry about. She's very capable. She won't let go of the Qin, family Xia, and Li families easily. Mrs. Qin was completely restless and wanted to leave as soon as possible. After knowing Yi Qian's identity, Mrs. Qin felt that Mrs. Li was exaggerating when she heard all the things she said. Mrs. Qin was completely restless and wanted to leave as soon as possible. After knowing Yi Qian's identity, Mrs. Qin felt that Mrs. Li was exaggerating when she heard all the things she said. Chapter 56-26. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-26. Betrayal. Mrs. Qin was actually scared, but she steadied her expression in front of Mrs. Li and Mrs. Xiao so that they wouldn't notice anything amiss. Hearing this, she sighed softly. I don't have the face to see old Mr. now. Old Mr. treats me as his own junior, but I listened to others' words and looked down on old Mr.'s granddaughter. I sigh. At this moment, Mrs. Qin's heart was in a terrible state. On the first day of the Chinese New Year, she was secretly worried that her son would be pestered by Yi Qian. As soon as Qin Xiu entered the house, she couldn't wait to welcome him. She wanted to pull Qin Xiu aside and ask if Yi Qian was at Old Master's house. Her brother-in-law, who came in later, had a loud voice. As soon as the door was closed, he shouted all the way from the door to the living room. She almost bit her own tongue because of what he shouted. Xiao brother-in-law said that Old Mister had found his biological granddaughter, and asked Old Madam and Old Master to go and take a look. The eldest daughter looked very much like Yu Xing, so it was obvious that she was Yu Xing's daughter. He also said that the old man's biological granddaughter had been recognized for several years, but he had not told his family and friends. Today, the Qin family happened to be there, so his good friend of decades took the opportunity to introduce her. The granddaughter of the old man looked very much like Yu Xing. At that time, a young and beautiful face flashed through Mrs. Qin's mind. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Mrs. Qin froze on the spot the moment it flashed past. Yi Qian, that girl called Yi Qian, her facial features didn't look like Yu Xing's. However, old Madam already knew about this. Seeing her brother-in-law blurting it out, old Madam directly said to her, Dingkong's wife, now you know why I like Xiao Yi and why I simply let you recognize Xiao Yi as your goddaughter. She knew everything. She knew old Madam's painstaking efforts, but she had wasted old Madam's efforts. Yi Qian was Old Master's granddaughter. Her son, Qin Xiu, liked Yi Qian, but she was blind to stop him. She even despised Yi Qian's family background. Mrs. Qin's face was still burning when she thought about what she had said and thought in the past. Seeing that his wife was regretful, Qin Dingkong sighed softly. So, when we arrive later, you should have a good talk with Yi Jian and apologize properly. Of course. You have to apologize to Yi Jian properly. I still have to apologize to Old Master and Yu Xing. Xiu Xiu Xiu. Xiu. Xiu Yu Qin. Xiu. Xiu. They all wanted to slap their own mouths. Ambassador Qin Dingkong was afraid that his wife was an elder and wouldn't be able to swallow her pride and apologize to the younger generation. Now that he heard that she wanted to apologize to Yi Qian, he sighed in relief. Even his tone became slightly more relaxed. Xiao Yi isn't an ordinary child. Naturally, she's not narrow-minded. If you apologize properly, I think she'll forgive you. Also, from now on, you have to stay away from Madame Li. You can't have any contact with her. You can even break off your relationship with her. Mrs. Qin didn't need her husband to remind her. She knew what she had to do. Madame Li, I'll stay away from her in the future, but I can't just break it off like that. It'll hurt my reputation if word gets out. Let's keep it that way. After a while, we'll naturally break off our relationship. You'll be in charge of the social interactions in the capital. Handle it properly and don't let people talk about it. Qin Dingkong was quite confident in his wife's social skills. The couple chatted in the car as they drove to the horse ranch in the suburbs of the capital. Chapter 56-27. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-27. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 Recommended reading. T equals _blank 11311/modules/article/home page of the book library. Add bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 56-27. Betrayal. Old Master Qin contacted Old Master Qin about an hour ago and invited him to play chess. Old Master Qin told Old Master Qin that today was Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan's engagement day. Old Master Qin almost fainted from anger. Even their Qin clan was kept in the dark about such a joyous event. Therefore, he made a threat on the phone. When the old man came back, he would kill him on the chessboard. Why didn't he tell the Qin family? The old man didn't want to tell the Qin family, but he didn't want Qin Xiu to know. He didn't want to hurt Qin Xiu. Old Master Qin didn't tell Old Master Qin about this. Old Master Qin probably understood. How could Old Master Qin not understand? But the matter had already been decided. His grandson had to face it, so how could he avoid it? However, after hanging up the phone, Old Master Qin sat alone on the sofa and did not make a sound for a long time. When old Madame Qin brought the medicine over, Old Master Qin finished the medicine and sighed to his wife. Xiao Yi, that child, is getting engaged today. Our family sure, alas. It's too late, too late, too late. They had known each other for decades, and the relationship between the two families was so close. In the end, thinking about it, it was such a pity that it felt a little heartache. But on second thought, he might be able to force it for other things, but when it came to relationships, he really couldn't. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 Recommended reading. It couldn't be forced. The consequences of forcing things were rarely good. The old couple sat in the living room and sighed for a long time before informing their son and daughter-in-law to represent the Qin family in attending the engagement of the two young people. Actually, he didn't have to go, but the relationship between the two families was too deep, and the Fu family was a lone family. It was equivalent to Yi Qian's maternal family, so he went to support Yi Qian. Old Master Qin's original words were for his son and daughter-in-law to support Yi Qian. It couldn't be helped. Xia Jinyuan's nickname as the Devil's Incarnate had spread far and wide, and even the Qin family knew a little about it. The two elders of the Qin family were also worried that Yi Qian would be bullied by Xia Jinyuan. At this time, Xia Jinyuan had already started the equestrian competition with Xia Yunin's friends. Equestrian competitions required a tacit understanding between the jockey and the horse. The speed and endurance of the horse were extremely high. Moreover, the most common challenge in equestrian competitions was to jump over obstacles. This was a test of both the jockey's skills and the horse's ability to jump over obstacles. Xia Jinyuan and the others went straight to the steeplechase, which was the most exciting part of the equestrian competition. Yi Qian looked at the handsome figure on the horse in front of him and clasped his hands in front of his chest. His clear eyes stared straight ahead, afraid that he would miss any exciting moment of Xia Jinyuan. They had already reached the roundabout field and were about to jump over 15 obstacles. Yi Qian even held his breath. It couldn't be helped. Xia Jinyuan's nickname as the Devil's Incarnate had spread far and wide, and the Qin family also knew a little about it. The two elders of the Qin family were also worried that Yi Qian would be bullied by Xia Jinyuan. At this time, Xia Jinyuan had already started the equestrian competition with Xia Yunin's friends. Equestrian competitions required a tacit understanding between the jockey and the horse. The speed and endurance of the horse were extremely high, and the most common challenge in equestrian competitions was to jump over obstacles. This was a test of both the jockey's skills and the horse's ability to jump over obstacles. Xia Jinyuan and the others went straight to the steeplechase, which was the most exciting part of the equestrian competition. Yi Qian looked at the handsome figure on the horse in front of him and clasped his hands in front of his chest. His clear eyes stared straight ahead, afraid that he would miss any exciting moment of Xia Jinyuan. They had already reached the roundabout field and were about to jump over 15 obstacles. Yi Qian even held his breath. Chapter 56-28. Yi Qian was not disappointed by Xia Jinyuan's loss in the first round. She knew that her man would never fight a losing battle. Since he said he would win the lottery, he would definitely win. He always kept his word. Yi Qian had always believed in Xia Jinyuan. She never doubted the authenticity of his words. Xia Yun's friend, a young businessman with the surname of Xie, took the lead in jumping over the ditch. Xia Jinyuan was the fourth person to successfully jump over the ditch. The other two people failed in the first round. Their horses stumbled and did not successfully jump over the ditch. The businessman surnamed Xie was quite good at horsemanship. After rushing over, he even looked back. When he saw that his friends were following him closely, he clamped his legs on the horse's belly and shouted, "Go!" The man and horse were like arrows released from a bow, moving on to the next obstacle. Horsemanship was an art. In Europe, it was even more of a science. Whether it was slow, fast, running, or ambushing, these skills were all displayed in this steeplechase. Horsemanship was an elegant art, but also a dangerous one. Every time there was a slight mistake in jumping over an obstacle, there was a high possibility of falling off the horse's back. Yi Qian was most worried that Xia Jinyuan, who had not ridden for a long time, would fall off the horse's back. Xia Jinyuan, who was dressed in a tight suit, was the fourth one to successfully jump over the ditch. His smooth and handsome movements made Yi Qian's eyes light up. Her black and bright eyes were like twinkling stars. She could only see Xia Jinyuan's figure, and could not tolerate anyone else. She did not look at how handsome the others were when they were riding the horses. Yi Qian did not even pay much attention to the first young businessman to jump over the ditch. She probably did not even see what he looked like. Their horse racing had the Western emphasis on speed and the old capital's emphasis on the horse's pace. There were walking horses, galloping horses, and galloping horses. This set of equipment was used by sixth brother when he was riding a horse. He even wore it when he was in his third year of university. After that, he kept it at home. Only I would take it out from time to time and take good care of it. After so many years, it's still in good condition. Beside him, Master Xia smiled at Yi Qian and said, "The saddle, whip, iron bit, water reins, and reins were all made by me and old 6 years ago. Even the classic European equestrian outfit he's wearing now was made together at that time. I didn't expect that he could still wear it now." Yi Qian, whose hands were pressed tightly against the bright floor-to-ceiling window, stared at him without moving an inch. Even when he heard old Master Yi speak, he did not ask her to move away. He smiled and replied, "He can still wear the clothes from a few years ago. He hasn't put on any weight and is in good health." Hearing this, Master Xia couldn't help but laugh. That's right. You really haven't gained any weight. You're still the same as before." When he came back yesterday, the first thing he did was to try on this equestrian suit. He even said that if he couldn't wear it, he would quickly ask Lao Wu to get him a new one. The main point is that you have to look good and handsome. There was no equestrian outfit that was not handsome. Xia Jinyuan was wearing a black equestrian outfit. The upper part of his body was a small suit that hugged his waist. The lower part of his body was slim-fitting black pants that were a little tighter. Paired with a pair of long riding boots, he looked handsome and elegant. When he wore it, Yi Qian could not help but touch his waist. His elegant handsomeness, coupled with his elegant sexiness, really hooked her little heart and made her little heart pound. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine to find this website. Thank you. Chapter 5628. Keep your word. As a soldier, he knew all military secret. Military orders were absolute. His daughter Yi Qian had to leave before the most important part of the engagement ceremony, the exchange of rings. Let's inform Old Six first and give him 1 minute to exchange the rings. Although military orders were absolute, he still had to do what his future son-in-law said. It was not rare for a woman to leave her fiancé at an engagement ceremony. There were also cases of soldiers leaving immediately on the way to their weddings. Xia Yunin saw that Xia Jinyuan had fallen to 4th place in the first round. She was a little anxious and wanted to tell her friend later so that he could give in. Unexpectedly, before he could say anything, he saw his second uncle running to the racecourse to call Xia Jinyuan, who was still in the race, back. He didn't know what second uncle said, but he saw Xia Jinyuan get down from the horse and rush towards the villa. What kind of emergency was this? Xia Jinyuan walked very quickly. First, he walked with big strides, then he ran quickly. As he ran, he took off his helmet and ran like an arrow. In a short while, he ran into the villa. He didn't mention whether he had won the first round or not. Today's main character had made a deal. Businessmen were always smooth with their word. Even if they thought so in their hearts, the words that came out of their mouths were not what they thought. No, it's my sister-in-law. She has something urgent here and needs to leave immediately. My 6th brother rushed over to meet my sister-in-law and talk to her for a while. He'll be back in 10 minutes at most to continue the match. Xia Yunin smiled and explained, I didn't tell you that my brother and sister-in-law are both soldiers. As soldiers, military orders are like mountains. Whenever there's an emergency in the army, no matter how big the situation at home is, the army has to be prioritized first. Look, they didn't even have time to exchange rings on their engagement day before my sister-in-law had to rush back to the army. Hearing that, the merchant surnamed Xie was stunned for a while before he exclaimed, So there's really such a thing? I always thought that these things were made up. He had heard of people suddenly leaving on the day of their wedding, but he didn't take it seriously. He even thought that it was a joke. Now, it seemed that it wasn't a joke. Chapter 5631. His other friends all sighed with emotion. Something like this would never happen to them no matter what. Another businessman friend said, I don't know if your brother will have a problem with this. He left so suddenly without any preparation. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to accept it. That's why my sister-in-law won't look for you. She'll only look for my brother. Xia Yunin smiled and lightly punched her friend's chest. Like us, we can't accept it. My brother can accept it. He'll even comfort my sister-in-law and tell her not to feel burdened and to return to the army peacefully. As soldiers, they understood each other and supported each other the best. As Xia Yunin chatted with her friends, Xia Jinyuan smiled and said to Yi Qian, "I was worried that I might have to leave because of something. I didn't expect that it would be you who had to leave because of something. You left at the last minute for today's engagement. I'm a little worried about the day of our wedding, but now it's me who had to leave because of something." As soon as he finished speaking, old Madame Xia knocked Xia Jinyuan hard on the back of his head. "Speak properly. Don't just say yes and no." They weren't even married yet, but he was already talking about the wedding. How annoying. Father Fu still blamed himself for Yi Qian's sudden departure. Seeing that his future son-in-law didn't take it to heart and was even in the mood to comfort Yi Qian, his satisfaction with Xia Jinyuan increased by another notch. The next time you get married, no matter how big the matter is, the wedding will go smoothly. Father Fu gently hugged Yi Qian's shoulder. After putting down his hand, he held Yi Qian's hand and took Xia Jinyuan's hand. He said solemnly, "Today, I'm giving my heart to you. I hope that you can treat her well in the future. For the rest of your life, I hope that the two of you can walk together hand in hand. Advance and retreat together, share honor and disgrace together, don't fight, don't cause trouble, and live a peaceful and happy life. My wife must want our daughter to live a simple life, but she is destined to embark on a path that is not simple. It will be full of thorns and dangers. I don't ask for much. I just hope that you can always stand by her side when she is at her most difficult time." In a short period of time, the father personally handed over his most beloved daughter to another man. From then on, his daughter left his wings and threw herself under the wings of another man. She did not ask for anything else, only for peace and happiness. Xia Jinyuan held Yi Qian's hand tightly and saluted Father Fu solemnly. "Dad, don't worry. From now on, I will treat her well, love her, care for her, and help her. For the rest of my life, I will always be by her side." This was the gentleman's promise that Xia Jinyuan made to Father Fu. It was also his vow to Yi Qian. For the rest of his life, he would live up to his promise today and fulfill it for the rest of his life. He would never go back on his word until the end of his life. Yi Qian also held the man of her life tightly. When she heard his promise, tears welled up in her eyes. She said softly to Father Fu, who also had tears in his eyes, "Dad, don't worry. He won't dare to bully me. I have two fathers to help me. Also, Grandpa and Grandma will help me. Also, eldest uncle and youngest uncle's whole family will help me. Also, my eldest brother will definitely teach sixth brother a lesson." As soon as she finished speaking, her family Xia brothers, who were standing outside to send her off, said, "Sister-in-law, you left us out. If sixth brother dares to bully you, we won't need the elders to do anything. We will teach him a lesson first." Chapter 56-32. Relying on favor. The ring was not extravagant. It was simple and came from Xia Yun's jewelry company. Xia Yun had personally designed it for her brothers and sisters. The diamond was a rare blue diamond with the word Xia engraved on the bottom of the clasp. The inner ring was the initials of Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian. The outer ring was decorated with phoenix and dragon patterns from the Shang dynasty. It was low-key yet elegant. In the entire capital, only the brothers and sisters of family Xia owned it. No one dared to imitate it. It had become a symbol of status for family Xia. Yi Qian did not know about this. When Xia Jinyuan put the ring on her finger with trembling fingers, the cool ring locked her entire body and heart. From now on, she was no longer the girlfriend of the man who kissed the back of her hand. She was his fiancée. Xia Jinyuan watched as Yi Qian put the engagement ring on his finger. Since the engagement, he had been in a daze. His heart felt surreal. The moment the ring wrapped around his finger, He felt as if his heart had settled down. He had a home and roots in a small house called Yi Qian. From now on, he truly and completely belonged to Yi Qian. Xia Jinyuan hugged Yi Qian gently and tightened his arms around her. He buried his head in Yi Qian's neck and kissed her gently with his thin lip. His eyes were filled with bliss. He said, "I'm finally yours. Don't think of ditching me in the future. I'll be yours forever." Even the words of love sounded like Xia Jinyuan. Yi Qian had the urge to cry. Tears were about to fall from her eyes. However, when she heard what he said, she could not hold it in and laughed until she cried. She wanted to hold it in, but he made her laugh until she cried. "You're already on my boat and you still want to get off? Don't even think about it in this lifetime." She laughed and cried at the same time. Her tears flowed freely. "It's all your fault. You made me cry. I don't even feel like crying. Quick, check if my makeup is smudged. I told you not to put on makeup, but you didn't agree. Now look at you, crying and laughing. I'm going to become the ugliest person in the world." Yi Jian was probably like this when she was spoiled and arrogant. Xia Jinyuan had no objections. He couldn't wait for his fiancée to be more delicate. In front of the whole family, Xia Jinyuan gently held Yi Qian's face in his hands and looked at it seriously for a few seconds. He laughed softly and said, "You're not ugly, not ugly. You're definitely not ugly. You're the most beautiful Jiao Jiao." She gently wiped away Yi Qian's tears, and lovingly kissed Yi Qian's forehead. Their engagement came to an end on this hurried but blessed day. "When I got on your boat, I never thought of getting off. From now on, we are in the same boat, and neither of us can abandon the other." Xia Jinyuan wiped away the tears on her face and smiled brightly. Applause sounded from all around. Everyone was happy for the newlyweds. Family Xia's older brothers originally wanted to consider their youngest brother, but now they no longer had such thoughts. Halfway through the engagement, his fiancée received an urgent mission and had to leave immediately. Forget it. Seeing that he was pitiful, they did not want to make things difficult for him. Father Fu had already silently wiped away his tears. He owed his wife and daughter his whole life. There was no way he could make up for it in this lifetime. This lifetime had become the deepest pain in his heart. Fortunately, his daughter came back and found her happiness. His daughter would definitely be very, very happy. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine to find this website. Thank you. Chapter 5632. Panda Relying on Love. Chapter 5633. The 10,000 miles red star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 5633. Love Leaving, Urban Romance, JIEQI. Chapter 5633. Love Leaving. With his back turned, Father Fu wiped the tears from his face once again. "Our daughter will definitely be very happy, very happy. Hongmei, did you see it? Did you see it? You must have seen it. You must have seen it," he murmured in a low voice, silently wiping away his tears. There was happiness, relief, and deep longing for his late wife. The old man had already used the handkerchief he brought with him to wipe his tears. Seeing the two exchange rings, the old man repeatedly said the word "good" several times. Beside him was Master Xia and old Madame Xia. The two elders saw that their most beloved grandson was settled. From now on, there would be someone to laugh with, cry with, struggle with, and share weal and woe with. The two elders no longer had any regrets in their lives. Okay, it's a joyous occasion. Why are you crying?" Master Xia was still comforting his wife. In fact, the old man had also silently wiped his tears a few times, stubbornly refusing to admit it. The old madam glared at her husband. "What's wrong with me crying? I'm crying tears of joy. I'm happy in my heart. I just want to cry a little. Can you still control it?" Okay. I can't control it. I can't control it. Cry well, but don't hurt your eyes." Master Xia suddenly softened. He didn't dare to say anything about the old madam crying. That's why men with family Xia pampered their wives. There was a reason for that. It was the same from top to bottom. They pampered and respected, and life was, please note. After reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes. Even if it was hard, he wouldn't let his wife and child suffer. Commander-in-Chief Xia's mood was really mixed. He pretended that there was dust in his eyes, wiped his eyes, and pretended that nothing had happened. He didn't move at all and stood still, maintaining the image of a strict father. Uncle glanced at him from the corner of his eye and lightly exposed him. If you want to cry, then cry. Who said you can't? You're mistaken, Commander-in-Chief Xia answered seriously. It's just an engagement, not a marriage. Why would I cry? Uncle Xia didn't believe it and said softly, "Sixth brother is engaged and has his own family. From now on, you will be his other family. That's right, there's no need to cry. Instead, we should celebrate. Celebrate that you've finally escaped from the sea of bitterness and are free from now on. Remember to drink a few more cups to celebrate." These words were full of sarcasm. Ever since he was a child, Commander-in-Chief Xia had never taken advantage of his elder brother, who had a sharp tongue. He couldn't win in terms of words, in terms of fighting, in terms of scolding, and even in terms of status. Yes, we should celebrate. Finally, I don't have to worry about him anymore, and I don't have to think about how I have to come out and beat him up if he gets into trouble. In the future, when there's someone to discipline him, I'll definitely drink a little wine to celebrate. Commander-in-Chief Xia answered calmly, but Uncle Xia only snorted coldly. Drinking to drown your sorrows makes you even more sorrowful. Drink less. Don't get so drunk that you cry loudly and embarrass yourself in front of your in-laws. Our family Xia really can't afford to embarrass ourselves like that. You're the commander-in-chief after all. Don't treat yourself like a 3-year-old child who wants to get drunk just because he's a little sad. Commander-in-Chief Xia was mentally tired and didn't want to talk to his elder brother anymore. He was the one who wanted him to get drunk to celebrate. He said that he wanted to drink to celebrate, but he also said that he was drowning his sorrows in alcohol and making him even more sorrowful. Either way, he was in the right, and he couldn't win against him. Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. Looking at the time again, it was almost time to leave. Commander-in-Chief Xia coughed softly. Yi Qian immediately received the message and whispered to the man who was hugging him tightly, "Captain Xia, I have to go. Stay here and accompany me. I'll contact you immediately when I come back." Chapter 56-34. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Guilt, urban romance, Guilt. Xia Jinyuan did not stay. He personally sent Yi Qian to the airport. Mrs. Qin and her husband, Ambassador Qin Dingkong, arrived at the racecourse at this time. The two of them got up from the parking lot and happened to see the two protagonists of the engagement party walking towards them. "Are they coming to pick us up?" Seeing Yi Qian walking over, Mrs. Qin instantly felt a little guilty. "Old Qin, I'm a little nervous now." This was the first time Mrs. Qin was nervous because of a junior. She didn't know what to do. Ambassador Qin Dingkong smiled. "The two of them don't know that we're here. I'm afraid that they're here to pick us up. Calm down, don't be so nervous. It's not like you've done anything heinous. You've said some nasty things in the past. Just apologize properly and make it up to Xiao Yi in the future." "That's easy for you to say." Mrs. Qin straightened her clothes and smiled when she saw Yi Qian approaching. She wasn't sure if it was because she knew that Yi Qian was old Master Qin's granddaughter, but when she looked at Yi Qian again, she no longer looked at her with the same vigilance and scrutiny as before. She no longer felt that Yi Qian was a girl who tried to climb up the social ladder. He only saw the girl walking over with a calm demeanor and a straight posture. She was like a pine tree in the snow and a white poplar in the wind. No matter how he looked at her, she was exceptionally pleasing to the eye. "Friends, please remind me, After reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of the eyes. 00 recommended reading. / Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan also saw Mrs. Qin and Qin Ding. They were the younger generation, so they should take the initiative to greet them. Seeing Yi Qian politely greet her, Mrs. Qin was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She pulled Yi Qian's hand and sighed. "Good child, you're so kind. I had a deep prejudice against you in the past, and even said some things that made you feel wronged. I want to apologize to you properly today. I hope that you can forgive me." Mrs. Qin didn't say anything nasty in front of Yi Qian. Yi Qian didn't take Mrs. Qin's actions to hearts because Mrs. Qin wasn't someone important to Yi. Yi Qian didn't take Mrs. Qin's little actions to Xia Jinyuan seriously. To borrow a phrase, she was not money. It was impossible for everyone to like her. There were people li chuli chio chioli 1,000 miles love 1,000 miles. Hearing this, Yi Qian smiled faintly and said, "You're too kind. You didn't understand me in the past and were deceived by others. That's why you misunderstood me. Speaking of which, it's also because I was too gullible and didn't think clearly. That's why I was influenced by what others said. At the end of the day, it's my own fault." Mrs. Qin pulled Yi Qian's hand and patted it lightly. "It was all my fault in the past. I'm sorry for making you feel wronged. I'll definitely make it up to you in the future. I won't let you feel wronged again." Mrs. Qin's voice was a little choked up. She blamed herself and felt guilty for her past actions. Mrs. Qin had a deeper understanding of Yi Qian's background from Mrs. Qin. She also knew that Yi Qian had suffered a lot when he was young and almost lost his life several times. When she thought about all the things she did, Mrs. Qin felt that it was normal that Yi Qian didn't forgive her. However, Yi Qian was very magnanimous and didn't blame her for this. The more this was the case, the more Mrs. Qin blamed herself. She wanted to talk to Yi Qian for a while more, but Ambassador Qin Dingkong smiled and said, "Don't talk to Yi Qian. I think she has something urgent to deal with. You can have a good chat with Yi Qian the next time you meet." Chapter 56-35. The woman in the photo had delicate facial features. Her skin was delicate and fair, and the white work shirt made her skin look as white as porcelain. In the photo, she was kneeling on the ground, holding a rag in both hands. She was seriously and meticulously doing her job, a hotel cleaner. She was doing the dirtiest and most tiring job in every city. However, she only had a calm and tranquil temperament. She was like a weed growing on a cliff. But anyone who knew what the woman in the photo had gone through couldn't help but admire her tenacious perseverance and extraordinary wisdom. But for the rich lady holding the photo, she hated it to the core. "Yi Qian, do you want to live? Ha, let's see if I'm willing or not." The young lady dressed elegantly. Her bright red lips were tightly pressed together. She stared at the photo with a cold gleam in her snake-like teeth, cold and vicious. "Yi Qian, you shouldn't be alive," the rich lady said gloomily with a strong murderous intent. She wouldn't let go of someone who knew all of her secrets, even if it was her cousin. The lives of the poor were worthless. Those who shouldn't be alive should just disappear. She took away everything that belonged to Yi Qian. Now that she was in a high position and married into a good family, she naturally had to play with her cousin who knew her secrets. Yi Qian. She had no choice. If she died, it would be hard to explain to her husband who knew that she had a cousin who didn't do her job properly. "You didn't pass the probation period. The hotel has decided not to hire you. Pack your things in 3 days and get out of here." Yi Jian, who was 28 years old, was fired again after 2 months of work. She was just like in the photo. Her temperament was calm and tenacious. She stood straight in front of the hotel manager in the lobby. She didn't bend over because of the manager's words, nor did she panic because she lost a job. She was used to losing a job every 2 months. While she became cold, it also made her heart stronger. Yi Qian calmly looked at the manager with her dark, obsidian-like eyes. She said calmly, "When will you pay me? We are a big listed company. How can your 2,000 yuan salary be small?" Manager Lu looked at the face in front of him that was so beautiful that it could make a man's heart flutter, and his heart itched badly. 10 minutes ago, he had been scolded by the HR manager because he had recruited a woman who had offended a big shot. He stared at Yi Qian as he pulled open the drawer of his desk, took out an envelope, and threw it out. Yi Qian threw the envelope containing his salary to the ground. His pupils constricted as he clenched his fists. The phone on the desk rang, and Manager Lu picked it up in a bad mood. Damn it, he had to turn off his phone later. "Manager Lu, I know you're a man who has tender feelings for women. Yi Qian, who seduced his teacher at the age of 14, you should know what to do. Don't worry, nothing will happen. Just don't kill him." A gentle voice came from the phone. Hearing that voice, Manager Lu felt that the other party was a beauty. "Train her well. I'm happy. You want to be the vice president of the hotel? It's just a word from me. Stupid B***tch. She got involved with a man at the age of 10, and she's still pretending to be a loyal woman in front of me." After hanging up the phone, Manager Lu's lust was aroused, and he became even more impudent. He was so damn lucky. He had ordered someone to make Yi Qian drink the drugged water. He wanted to forget about it after one time, but this phone call came at the right time. If he did it well, the wife of that big shot would be his backer in the future. Yi Qian bent down to pick up the envelope containing her salary. Before her fingers touched the envelope, she looked up as if she had a premonition. Danger! Danger! She had to leave immediately. She had been able to survive until now because of her ability to react quickly to danger and avoid it. This was probably the only grace that life had bestowed upon her. At this moment, her body swayed without warning. Yi Qian's alarm went off in her heart. Before she could stand up, an indescribable feeling of embarrassment spread through her limbs and bones. Her lower abdomen seemed to be on fire, and she fell down beside the desk. "Damn it, why are you pretending to be a pure woman? You're a B***tch, who got involved with your own teacher at the age of 14. Someone told me to treat you well. Let's see how you're going to escape this time." The drugged Yi Qian was pressed against the desk. She didn't struggle violently. She clutched her collar tightly with one hand and groped around the desk with the other. When she came in, she saw the display on the desk clearly. With just a glance, she could remember the things on the display, where they were placed, and which were things that could be used as tools for self-defense. For example, there were 7 pens, 2 pencils, and 3 fountain pens in the black leather pen holder. One of the fountain pens was not capped. 2 ballpoint pens. Oh, and there was also a pair of office scissors. 2 buttons on her shirt had been ripped off, and those dirty hands were holding onto her collar. Her pearly white teeth bit down on her lower lip. Even if she bit it until it was bleeding, she didn't let go. Pain could make her more clear-headed, and she wouldn't succumb to the drug. Yi Qian was a woman who could fight with her life on the line, and she was also a woman who could be ruthless. At the age of 14, she was framed for seducing her own math teacher. So many years had passed, and no matter how badly her cousin, who had married into an influential family, had tried, she still managed to survive. Today, whether or not she could survive, she had to fight for it. Yi Qian, who didn't waste her energy struggling, grabbed the fountain pen in her hand and stabbed it hard into the man's arm. The sharp tip of the pen pierced into Manager Lu's arm. The man, who was overwhelmed by lust, was caught off guard and let go of the pen with a scream. Yi Qian, who was already battered and exhausted, accurately picked up the envelope containing her salary. She didn't even look at the man whose arm was covered in blood. She dragged her weak legs and staggered away. Before she could take 2 steps, the hair on the back of her head was grabbed. "Damn it! How dare you hurt me?" Manager Lu was a man after all. Even if he was injured, he still had the upper hand against a drugged woman. Bang! Yi Qian, who was pressing down on her head, was slammed onto the desk. Immediately, warm liquid flowed out. Manager Lu was ruthless. He slammed Yi Qian's head onto the desk again and again. He roared fiercely, "You shameless B***tch! I'm going to kill you today." Yi Qian knew that she had lost a lot of blood. Her head felt like it was going to shatter from the impact. She placed her hand on the desk and reached for the scissors in the pen holder. The office phone was swept to the ground. If she moved forward a little more, she would have swept the pen holder over. Holding the scissors, Yi Qian used the last of her strength and stabbed it into Manager Lu's chest with extreme precision. The sharp scissors accurately pierced his heart. She was Yi Qian. She had cleaned the autopsy room at the medical school. She was a woman who was better than the medical students who attended formal classes. She knew the structure of the human body very well. She couldn't just stab the scissors in, she had to pull them out. Only when she pulled them out could the blood in the heart gush out like water from a high-pressure water gun. You want to save him? Maybe in your next life. Yi Qian, whose face was covered in blood and hair wet from the blood, looked like she had just walked out of hell. She leaned against the desk with her eyes closed and felt for the office phone. Her bloody fingers pressed a string of numbers one by one. Four Burmese criminals had crossed the border and escaped into our country. Why would they need her help? Why did they need Yi Qian? The two soldiers who came to receive Yi Qian were even more confused. They did not understand why they needed a female soldier. When Yi Qian opened the document, his pupils constricted. On the first page of the document was a picture of a female felon. The small black and white photo came into view, and a memory immediately came into Yi Qian's mind. In the first half of the year before her graduation, she was undercover for the first time. She was locked up in a wooden house with 4 girls to investigate the international girl trafficking case. Later, the 4 girls left one by one, and she was taken away by the demoness, Lena. Later, she and the drug police officer, Lu Ning, borrowed the drug dealer Wu Jinkuan's power to eliminate Lena. In the end, she returned to China with the injured Lu Ning. Everything about Lena, Wu Jinkuan, the temple, the abduction of girls, the drug dealer, and so on became a memory. In Lena's hands, she went through the darkest days of her life, and she also saw the evilness of human nature. These memories were full of darkness, and she did not want to remember them. Chapter 56-37. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-37. Betrayal Dark, Urban Romance. Chapter 56-37. Betrayal Darkness. However, when she saw the picture of the female felon, the dark past rushed into her mind. It hadn't been that long, but when she recalled it, it felt as if it had happened yesterday. At the tip of his nose, he could even smell the stench of bones that had been killed by Lena and piled up in the pit behind the mountain. She actually didn't die, Yi Qian said in a low voice, his expression grave. The person in the black and white photo was naturally not Lena. Lena was killed by her with her own hand. She only stopped when she confirmed that Lena was dead. This female prisoner was the Burmese girl who had been imprisoned in the same wooden house as her. She was the skinny girl who had stolen food from other girls and was returned the next day. She had always thought that this skinny little girl was dead, but she had never thought that she was still alive. She wasn't dead. She was alive and well. She was even living as a female felon. What was her name? They had been together for 9 days. They had starved together for 9 days. After that, they had fought together for a few days. However, they did not know each other's names. At that time, they only wanted to survive. Even she only wanted to survive. Who would ask each other for their names in a friendly manner? My eyes stopped at the name of the female felon. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. The Burmese girl's name was translated into Chinese, which was the Chinese name of a female felon. In Myanmar, women with a certain social status were called Du Gang, and young women were called Ma Gang, which meant that this female felon had a certain social status in Myanmar. As he continued reading, Yi Chien found out where Ma Gang had been taken away by Lena. She was sent to a high-ranking official in Myanmar. Half a year later, she became the wife of the high-ranking official. Then, her status changed drastically until the high-ranking official stepped down. She was imprisoned and escaped a month later. 3 days ago, she escaped into our country. Yi Jian suppressed the shock in her heart and continued to read the information. At this moment, Qin Xiu was making tea for Old Master Qin and Old Madam Qin in the Qin family in the capital. During the holidays, the Qin family was always bustling with noise and excitement. However, the atmosphere in the Qin family today was somewhat stifling. Old Master Qin sat with an angry expression, accompanied by Old Madam Qin. The two elders of the Qin family sat in the middle of the three-seater sofa. On the left sat Old Master Qin's eldest son, Qin Dinghai, and his family. On the right sat the second son, Qin Dingbua, and his son, Qin Yi. Old Master Qin's anger was because of his second son, Qin Dingbua. It wasn't easy for your eldest brother and second brother to clean up your mess. You and I also agreed to let Qin Yi back into the Qin family. Now that Qin Yi has grown up and your mother and I are old, we can't control you anymore. Are you trying to rebel? Old Master Qin said angrily. He kicked the floor with his walking stick. The sound of his walking stick hitting the floor made Qin Dingbua and Qin Yi restless. Dad, I didn't say that I didn't care about them. It's just that, although my company is small, it's not small. At least there is someone in charge of it. Qin Yi is my only son. If I don't hand it over to him, who else can I hand it over to? Qin Dingbua continued to resist even though his back was sweating. Although Qin Yi was Qin Dingbua's illegitimate son, Qin Dingbua only had 2 daughters. In his heart, he had always nurtured Qin Yi as his successor. If it weren't for Old Master Qin, Old Madam Qin, eldest brother Qin Dinghai and second brother Qin Dingkong, Qin Dingbua would have already handed over the company to Qin Yi. Qin Dingbua knew that his parents didn't like Qin Yi, but he still didn't give up trying to get them to accept Qin Yi. Chapter 56-38. Qin Xiu, who was making the tea, did not say anything. This was a matter for the elders. As a junior, it was not appropriate for him to express his personal opinion. In addition, Qin Xiu looked at him with some resentment. Therefore, Qin Xiu did not say anything. In the Qin family, because Qin Xiu and Qin Yi were about the same age, there would always be people who would compare the two brothers. It was fine if they were in the same family, but they were all outsiders, especially Qin Yi's friends. As long as Qin Xiu appeared on TV, they would always make fun of him. Although they were not bad people, Qin Yi naturally took it to heart. Because of his identity, the 30-year-old Qin Yi had countless girlfriends. However, none of them were good enough. They were either small models or small stars. None of them were good enough for him. Qin Dingbua wanted to marry Qin Yi to a noble lady. With the help of his in-laws, no one would dare to mention Qin Yi's identity in the future. However, Qin Yi's identity as an illegitimate son was not a secret in the upper-class society of Jing City. Qin Dingbua wanted to let Qin Yi take over his company as soon as possible to give Qin Yi more bargaining chip. He wanted to pave the way for Qin Yi. However, Old Master Qin and Old Madam Qin had been suppressing him. They did not want their daughter-in-law and granddaughter to be wronged. They had told their daughter-in-law early that Qin Yi would definitely leave Jing City in the future. They would not let Qin Dingbua's company get involved. If Qin Yi had the ability, He would open his own company and make his own way. Qin Yi's biological mother came from a bad background. In addition, Qin Yi himself was not good enough. Old Master Qin and Old Madam Qin would not let Qin Yi be Qin Dingbua's successor. They would rather give all of Qin Dingbua's family business to their two granddaughters as their dowry than let Qin Yi take over. This was the oath that Qin Dingbua had made when he knelt in front of the two elders. However, it was impossible for him to go back on his words now. When Qin Dingbua mentioned it, Old Master Qin and Old Madam Qin refused firmly without any hesitation. They had no intention of relenting. Now that Qin Dingbua said that he would inherit the company, Old Master Qin was so angry that he directly threw the crutch in his hand at Qin Dingbua. Although the old man was old, he still had the strength to throw a walking stick. Qin Dingbua was caught off guard when he suddenly threw the walking stick, and he was hit by it. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and tilted his head quickly. The dragon-headed walking stick only hit Qin Dingbua's shoulder. Even so, it was painful enough to make him suck in a breath of cold air. "Dad, can't you talk nicely? Don't use your weapon. Don't anger yourself. If that happens, big brother and second brother will scold me again." Qin Dingbua rubbed his aching shoulder and signaled Qin Yi with his eyes to pick up the crutch quickly and bring it to the old man. Big brother Qin Dinghai's face had already changed. Seeing that Qin Dingbua was still smiling mischievously, he slammed his hand on the solid wood sofa's armrest and scolded, "Do you still have any manners? You're already in your 50s, but you're still not serious. Back then, Qin Yi was accepted because you knelt in front of Dad and Mom and swore an oath. At that time, Qin Yi was still young. Dad and Mom pitied him and begged your wife to accept Qin Yi. It was because of this that your wife resented us for several years. Later, when she saw that Dad and Mom did not let her accept Qin Yi and handed over the company and family's finances to your wife, she slowly let go of her resentment towards Dad and Mom. It wasn't easy for the family to be harmonious, and Mom finally accepted Qin Yi. Now you're out to make trouble. Are you trying to make Dad and Mom angry? Chapter 56-39. 10,000 miles of Red Star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 56-39. Revenge Family Affair, Urban Romance, JEQI. Chapter 56-39. Revenge Family Affair. Qin Dingbua was an anomaly in the Qin family. When he had an illegitimate child, the news had spread like wildfire in the capital. Old Master and Old Madam Qin couldn't take it anymore and went to an island to rest for a whole month. Now, he was up to no good again. Qin Dinghai wanted to whip him. After scolding his parents, Qin Dinghai quickly comforted them. "Father, Mother, don't be angry. Dingkong and I will keep an eye on him. We won't let him mess around. He's only in his early 50s. If he wants to divide the family property, he can divide it among his siblings and my two nieces first. He can give it to whoever he wants." If that was the case, Qin Dingbua wouldn't have proposed to let Qin Yi inherit the family business. He wanted to say more, but Qin Yi, who had been silent all this time, spoke up. "Father, it's the new year. Grandfather is not in good health. Don't say too much." He was also anxious, but what was the use of being anxious? As long as Old Master, Old Madam Qin, first uncle and second uncle were still alive, it would be difficult for him to inherit the family business. He didn't really want to inherit the family business, but because, he glanced at Qin Xiu, who was sitting upright. Jealousy flashed in Qin Yi's eyes. It was only because of Qin Xiu. You should pay attention to your eyes after reading for a long time. Translator, Mr. Voltaire, he was always compared to him. As long as he was compared to him, he, Qin Yi, had nothing to do. He was like a useless person. There was always a lot of resentment in his heart. The more he wanted to do something to compete with Qin Xiu, the harder it was to do so. Over time, the imbalance in his heart grew. Qin Dingbua didn't dare to say more. Old Master Qin was so angry that he threw away his crutches. If something happened to Old Master Qin, he wouldn't be able to explain it. Just when the atmosphere in the Qin family was tense, Qin Dingkong and his wife, who had just returned from the racecourse, rang the doorbell. When the Qin family's daughter-in-law heard the doorbell, she heaved a sigh of relief. As the eldest sister-in-law, she could only say a few words at the right time about her uncle's matter. She couldn't point at her uncle and scold him like her husband, but she couldn't let her husband be the bad guy all the time. If the brothers persuaded together, her uncle should be more accepting. When Qin Dingkong entered the living room, he saw the old master's angry face and the old madam's expressionless face. He then looked at his younger brother, Qin Dingbua. Qin Dingkong immediately understood that the source was Qin Dingbua. Upon seeing the two people coming in, the daughter-in-law of the Qin family immediately said to Qin Xiu with a smile, "Xiu, quickly pour a cup of hot tea for your parents. It's cold outside, so drink a cup of tea to warm them up." Qin Dingbua was a little short of breath as he called out, "Second brother, second sister-in-law." Qin Yi stood up and greeted respectfully, "Second uncle, second aunt." The angry old Master Qin also relaxed a little. "Sit down and have a good talk with your brother. What else is there to talk about?" Old Madam Qin said in a deep voice, "If he really does that, then directly report it and sever all ties with him." Old Madam Qin's means were also iron-blooded. Sometimes, Qin Dingbua wasn't afraid of Old Master Qin, but he was more afraid of Old Madam Qin. Old Madam Qin always kept her word. If she gave the order, even Old Master Qin wouldn't be able to do anything. Qin Dingkong couldn't let Old Master and Old Madam Qin be angry anymore. He took off his coat and handed it to Old Madam Qin while saying with a smile, "Dingbua's matter is something that can be solved easily. You two don't have to take it to heart. Today's engagement ceremony between the Xia and Fu families is really lively. You two should really go and watch the fun. Family Xia's sixth brother, that kid, is quite good. He's really good at everything. No wonder old Mister is willing to betroth his only granddaughter to him." Chapter 5640. 10,000 Miles of Red Star Lives Up to Your Expectations. Chapter 5640. Love Heart, Urban Romance, JQI. Chapter 5640. Love Gouge Heart. He wanted to change the topic and liven up the atmosphere so that Old Master and Old Madam Qin would be happier. But Qin Xiu, who was pouring hot tea, heard this and his hands trembled violently. The scalding hot water directly splashed onto the back of his hand. The scene suddenly became chaotic, and several exclamations were heard. The Qin family's daughter-in-law's expression changed a few times. She seemed to understand something and her eyes were filled with love for Qin Xiu. This child must have fallen in love with Old Master's granddaughter. Uncle Qin Dinghai ordered his wife, "Quick, go and get the medicine." "Xiu." Madam Qin's voice was trembling as her expression changed drastically. She quickly rushed over. Old Madam Qin immediately said in a deep voice, "Xiu, go and take a cold shower." Mrs. Qin, who had rushed over, saw that Qin Xiu's hand was red from the scalding. She immediately reacted and grabbed Qin Xiu's wrist. "Quick, quick, go and take a cold shower." Qin Xiu didn't think it was a big deal. He sighed and said, "Mom, sit down. I'll go by myself." "Go by yourself? What else can you do?" Mrs. Qin's eyes turned red and she blamed her husband as well. She glared fiercely at him. "Why did you bring that up?" Ambassador Qin Dingkong obviously underestimated Yi Qian's importance in his son's heart. He knew that Qin Xiu's hand was scalded. He knew from his wife that Qin Xiu liked Yi Qian. Take care of your eyes after reading for a long time. Jian, but he did not expect her to be so important. Knowing that Yi Jian already had a boyfriend, his son still cared about her. Most importantly, Ambassador Qin Dingkong rarely cared about Qin Ning and Qin Xiu's relationship. In his opinion, since Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan were in love, his son, Qin Xiu, should have given up long ago. Who would have thought? To Ambassador Qin Dingkong's surprise, his face darkened slightly. He is an adult. He knows what he has done. So what if my hand got burned? Is it worth making a fuss over? Xiu go wash it with cold water, and find some medicine to apply on it. Mrs. Qin still wanted to follow them, but Qin Xiu persuaded her to stay back. Old Master Qin, who had been silent all this while, was rather pleased to see this. It was not bad that he did not lose his cool. Old Master Qin didn't expect Zhongzi to suddenly mention it. The tap was turned on, and ice-cold water flowed out of the tap to wash the back of his scalded hand. The scalded area was not small. The entire back of his left hand was scalded, and it hurt just by looking at it. But Qin Xiu didn't feel anything. This little bit of pain, compared to the heart-wrenching pain just now, what was it? Engagement. It turned out that today was the day of her engagement with Xia Jinyuan, and he didn't know anything about it. Engagement, it's really good, really good. It's really good, really good. The water flowed, and a few drops of water fell from above, dripping on his exposed wrist. They were instantly washed clean by the cold water that flowed out, leaving no trace behind. Qin Xiu's eyelids trembled as he slowly closed his eyes. The sadness in his eyes was completely hidden in the depths of his eyes as his eyelids closed. Undeserved love would eventually be annihilated. In the living room, Mrs. Qin's voice was choked with sobs. She said to her husband in a very low voice, "Why did you say it out loud? Are you sprinkling salt in Xiu-er's heart?" Mrs. Qin didn't want to say it out loud since her eldest brother and youngest uncle's family were present. Qin Xiu liked Yi Qian. Apart from the two elders of the Qin family, only Qin Dingkong and his wife knew about it. But now their sister-in-law also knew about it. Chapter 56-41. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Hard to read, urban romance, a difficult scripture. Madame Qin wanted to keep it a secret, but Ambassador Qin Dingkong didn't think so. His face turned a bit cold as he said, "It's a good thing. Don't tell me you want to keep it a secret just to accommodate Xiu-er? You're not doing this for Xiu-er's sake. You'll only make it harder for Xiu-er to leave. The earlier Xiu-er knew the truth, the earlier he gave up, the better. Do you think you can pretend that this matter didn't happen if you keep it a secret?" Father and mother's education methods were always different in some aspect. Ambassador Qin Dingkong firmly believed that a short pain was better than a long pain. Mrs. Qin still wanted to keep it a secret until Qin Xiu figured it out on her own. When the time came, Qin Xiu wouldn't be sad. How could she not know that it was better to have a short period of pain than a prolonged period of pain? Tears welled up in Mrs. Qin's eyes as she stared at Qin Xiu's frail back. However, in front of her eldest brother, sister-in-law, uncle and nephew, Qin Yi, Mrs. Qin had to hold back her tears. She didn't want too many people to know that Qin Xiu liked Yi Qian. She wanted to save some face for Qin Xiu. Qin Yi was a shrewd man. Although he did not understand the twists and turns of the story, Qin Xiu's behavior immediately made him feel that something was amiss. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. It seemed that his cousin had taken a liking to old Master Fu's granddaughter, but she had not taken a liking to him, and had gotten engaged to the family Xia. Inexplicably, Qin Yi felt a burst of comfort in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that he had angered the two elders of the Qin family, he would have really wanted to poke Qin Xiu. Qin Yi, who was almost 30 years old, was no longer the impulsive Qin Yi from a few years ago. They were both adult. Qin Yi was an awkward existence in the Qin family. In the past, he was insensible and would often get into conflicts with Qin Xiu. But now it was all done. If he wanted to mock Qin Xiu now, he would be a fool. Even if he wanted to mock Qin Xiu, He couldn't do it in front of the elders. He couldn't bring about his own destruction. Qin Yi got up and excused himself. It was getting late, so he went back first. Qin Dingbua also got up and left together. That girl is not bad-looking and she is the apple of the Fu family's eye. If you marry her, old master and old madam will dote on you more, let alone continue my company. It was cold outside. Qin Xiu hugged his coat tightly as he walked out of the warm house. He laughed and said, "Dad, you must be dreaming. I went after old master's granddaughter, but she didn't even take a fancy to Qin Xiu, let alone me. I know what I'm capable of. I won't go and ask for trouble." Qin Dingbua laughed out loud after hearing that. "At least you have some self-awareness. You've improved compared to before." Having said that, he was silent for a while. Then, Qin Dingbua sighed and said, "I'm very happy that you don't have Xiu to compete with. Xiu is the heir of our Qin family. You, don't compete with him. You won't be able to compete with him, so why bother looking for trouble? Besides, Xiu is a very good person. You and Xiu are about the same age. When you came back that year, he really regarded you as a brother. You were the one who didn't appreciate his good fortune and saw his shortcoming of not being able to recognize his direction. You teased him since he was a child until he grew up, tormenting the feelings between you two brothers. You should have been more sensible and coaxed old master and old Madam Qin family to be happy. But today I propose that you inherit the company. How could they refuse? Today I was hit by old master's crutch and almost fractured my bones. Chapter 56-42. 10,000 Miles of Red Star lives up to your expectations. Put it down, urban romance. Jacob put it down. Qin Dingbua doted on Qin Yi because Qin Yi was the son of the woman he loved. Even if Qin Yi's birth mother was not from a good background, Qin Dingbua still liked her. Qin Yi laughed and put his arm around Qin Dingbua's shoulder as if they were brothers. They walked towards the garage. "Dad, everyone is young and frivolous. You were young and frivolous when you gave birth to me. I was young and frivolous when I was young and frivolous when I was young and frivolous when I competed with Qin Xiu. All right, stop lecturing me. I think my life is not bad now. I can live a long life by eating and drinking. You're only in your early 50s. You're in the prime of your life. Maybe you can even give me a younger brother to inherit the family business. Why do you want to hang yourself on me? You unambitious thing. I've done my best to help you, and you're trying to ruin my plans?" Qin Dingbua laughed and kicked Qin Yi's leg. The father and son drove away like brothers. Qin Yi was not a bad person. He was just a little narrow-minded and narrow-minded. He was jealous of Qin Xiu. He had resentment and low self-esteem. Qin Dingbua knew that in his heart, he would sometimes persuade his only son to stop him from being stubborn and annoying. After they left, Qin Dinghai and his wife also found an excuse to leave. Only Qin Dingkong and his family were left. "Take care of your eyes if you read for a long time." She accompanied the old master and old madam. The daughter-in-law of the Qin family was very clear. Her sister-in-law cared a lot about her reputation and wanted to find a good marriage for her nephew, Qin Xiu. She knew in her heart that marriage was predestined. It was not something you could find just because you wanted to. The eldest daughter-in-law of the Qin family, who understood everything in her heart, saw through it but didn't say anything. She was amiable and didn't cause internal conflicts in the family. She also didn't feel superior because her son married well and her daughter married well. She was like before, so she was quite liked by the old master and the old madam. Before she left, she smiled at Qin Xiu and said, "This is the time to have a good rest. If you feel bored in Beijing, why don't you go to Harbor City and play with Sister Jia? Sister Jia is looking forward to you." Qin Jia was Qin Dinghai's eldest daughter. Her husband was from a prestigious family in Harbor City. Qin Jia had always lived in Harbor City and only returned to the capital to visit her parents once or twice a year. Qin Xiu knew that his aunt was giving him face. After thanking her, he sent her to the car before returning to the living room. In the living room, Qin Dingkong's face was slightly gloomy. Seeing that Qin Xiu had seen him, he lifted his chin slightly and gestured for Qin Xiu to come over and sit down. Is everything all right? He did not want his son to think about someone else's fiancée in the future. Qin Xiu knew what his father wanted to talk about. The first thing he said after sitting down was like a reassurance pill to his parent. Yi Qian is my sister. Grandpa Fu said that I will be Yi Qian's brother in the future. I can't have any thoughts about my sister as a brother. My moral bottom line doesn't allow me to continue. I could in the past, but I can't now. I know it clearly. His few words made the whole family feel relieved. This was also the last time Qin Xiu mentioned Yi Qian with romantic feelings. It was also Qin Xiu's last day in China. He would go to Melbourne at 3:00 tomorrow afternoon to start his career as a diplomat. He would learn to forget in a foreign country until he let go. The storm in the Qin family had temporarily come to an end, but the storm in the family Xia had just begun. Madame Xiao, who had been waiting at the door of the family Xia, finally saw her son, Master Xia, old Madame Xia, and the whole family Xia family. Chapter 56-43. The Red Star lives up to your expectations. Madame Xiao sat in the car and didn't get out immediately. No one in the family noticed her immediately, and they all got out of the car happily. Xia Jinyuan and Xia Yunin quickly got out of the car to help the two elders out. Master Xia and the old madam sat in Ho Zi's nanny car and played with Ho Zi's twins all the way. Xia Yiwei and Ho Zi had been living in the southern province for a long time and only returned to Beijing during the New Year. The two elders cherished their great-grandchildren and didn't feel heavy even if they carried them in their arms. On the other hand, the younger generation was afraid that the twins would disturb the elders, so Xia Yiwei took care of them all the way, afraid that the twins would disturb the elders. Let's go home, let's go home. The twins patted the small car in the spacious nanny car and swayed their chubby waists happily. Their chubby little faces revealed an innocent smile. They were very obedient and sat in their child safety chairs obediently. They sang and recited poems one moment and made the two elders laugh loudly. They couldn't wait to hug and kiss them a few times. I'll carry them down first. You get out of the car slowly, don't twist your hand again. The car stopped and Xia Yiwei was about to get up to unbuckle the twins' seatbelt. Ho Zi immediately stopped her. A few days ago, Xia Yiwei twisted her hand while carrying a child. Ho Zi was so worried that she didn't even dare to let Xia Yiwei carry the child, afraid that she would hurt herself again. Master Xia saw this and could only say, "Take care of the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time." He smiled and shook his head, but the satisfaction in his eyes deepened. The old madam smiled and said, "Xiao Ho, don't spoil her too much. Raising children is a couple's business. Don't spoil Yiwei and tire yourself out by taking care of everything at home." "Thank you for your concern, old madam. I don't do much at home and Yiwei takes care of the children. Now that her hand is injured, if she sprains it again, it will become an old injury. The one who will suffer in the future will be Yiwei." Ho Zi quickly unfastened the twins' seatbelts and carried them out of the car one by one. "Please sit down with Grandpa for a while. It's windy outside. Don't get too cold." Ho Zi was now a good family man. Since he knew how to take care of his wife and children, he took care of almost everything in the house. Xia Yiwei complained from time to time that if this went on, she would be spoiled. Before Xia Jinyuan reached Master Xia and the old madam's car, he saw Ho Zi carefully helping his cousin Xia Yiwei out of the car. A smile flashed in his eyes as he quickened his pace and frowned slightly. He looked at the big banyan tree by the side of the road. There was a black car parked under the big banyan tree. He could vaguely see that the owner of the car was sitting down. It should be parked in the dark intentionally. He needed to pay attention to find it. He slowed down and said to Xia Yunin beside him, "You go ahead first. I'll take a look in front." "What are you looking at?" Xia Yunin followed his gaze and saw the black car parked in the dark. "Who is it? Why did they stop here to wait for you?" After that, he whistled softly and teased, "Kid, could it be your ex-lover? Did they find out that you're engaged, so they waited at the door to wait for you?" Before he could finish his sentence, Xia Jinyuan's cold gaze stopped him. He patted his mouth and said, "I said something wrong. I said something wrong. Please forgive me." Sixth brother could joke about other things, but jokes about relationships were absolutely taboo. He had a slip of the tongue and drank too much in joy. His brain was muddled. "I have a fiancé. Be careful." Xia Jinyuan warned him with his eyes. When it came to Xia Yunin, it was best to leave. The two brothers soon found out who was sitting in the car. Chapter 56-44. Madame Xiao, who was sitting in the car, finally saw the person she had been waiting for. Silently crying, she took out a tissue to wipe the tears on her face and tidied up her makeup. In front of the Xia family, Madame Xiao opened the car door and raised her voice. "Ah Yuan." Her voice was a little hoarse and nasal after crying. However, no matter how different her voice was from usual, family Xia could still recognize who it was. Madame Xiao was here. Old Madame, who was still in the car, also heard the noise. Old Madame, who had a kind smile on her face, gradually darkened. Her ex-daughter-in-law had come to make trouble for the family again. It had been decades, but she was still pestering them. "She doesn't want to let us go," Madame Dowager said faintly. There was a faint anger that only Master Xia could detect. "For the sake of fate, I tolerated her a lot. I didn't expect that not only did she not thank me, but she also wanted a yard after taking an inch. It's been decades, but my ex-daughter-in-law still hasn't made much progress." Master Xia patted the back of his wife's hand and sighed. "Don't be angry. It's not good for you to be angry now. Leave it to sixth brother. She's here to look for sixth brother. She'll leave when she sees him. Today is a big day. No matter what, she's still sixth brother's mother. For the sake of sixth brother, don't worry about it. She only gave birth to sixth brother once. If that wasn't the case, why would I let her come again and again?" Madame Dowager said coldly. "Over and over again. If I don't solve it today, she'll do it again. She's been presumptuous many times, but I didn't argue with her. I thought that since she's sixth brother's mother, I should be grateful for her kindness. In the end, look at how arrogant she is now. Last year, she blocked sixth brother's way and humiliated our granddaughter-in-law. If I tolerate this, I'll really become a bodhisattva." The old madam was the Iron Lady back then. Her methods were iron-willed, and her temper was quite unique. She had endured Madame Xiao for so long, and tonight, she did not want to endure it anymore. Seeing that Xia Jinyuan was being held so tightly by Xia Jinyuan that she couldn't shake him off even after several attempts, the old madam became even angrier. The elders of the family Xia also saw Madame Xiao, but Ho Zi didn't know her. However, he knew that she existed. Seeing this, he said to the servant beside him, "Take the children back first and coax them to sleep early." "Yes, sir." The two servants bowed and each carried one child back to the house. They were both servants that Ho Zi had brought from her own home. They were also very reliable servants. Otherwise, Ho Zi would not have brought them to the family Xia. After the servant left with the child, Xia Yiwei whispered to her husband, sixth brother's mother, my ex-aunt. "Grandma has some opinions about her. Let's hurry up and help Grandpa and Grandma back to the house. Don't let the old lady be angry. Can sixth brother handle it?" Ho Zi glanced at them and saw that Madame Xiao was holding on to Xia Jinyuan tightly and was crying. His brows were tightly knitted together. Today is sixth brother's big day. As a mother, she's crying like this. It's not because she's crying out of joy. He then asked Xiaoyue in a low voice, should we just get rid of her? Although she had retired many years ago, the bandit spirit in her bones was difficult to erase in this lifetime. It would only be better to hide it. When something happened, the bandit spirit would come with a bit of ruthlessness. Chapter 56-45. The Great Red Star lives up to your expectations. Xiaoyue was very cautious. No need, let's see what sixth brother has to say first. We're all juniors, it's not appropriate for us to interfere. Don't say any more, hurry up and help Grandpa and Grandma in. Xiaoyue bent over and got into the car again. Master Xia reminded her, Yue, help your grandma steady. He was worried that his wife would rush over and cause trouble for his ex-wife, because of sixth brother. Even if she wanted to settle it, she could just call her to the house to settle it. Xiaoyue, who received the reminder, put a little more strength into her wrist and helped old Madame Xiao out of the car. It's a little slippery, be careful. Eldest aunt and eldest uncle walked over from behind. They first glanced at Madame Xiao, who was having a good time. A hint of darkness flashed across their eyes. However, seeing that old master and old Madame Xiao didn't say anything, they calmed down and didn't go to Madame Xiao. Family Xia's youngest uncle couldn't stand it. When he heard Madame Xiao crying after getting out of the car, he said to his wife, she's crying again, crying again. Every time she comes to our house, she cries. We've never mistreated her, let alone mistreat her. It's the new year, and it's sixth brother's happy day. Who is she crying for? She's crying all the good news. Youngest uncle was a businessman, and businessmen more or less paid attention to omens. When he saw Madame Xiao crying until she was out of breath, he didn't look happy. Take note, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. Fortunately, youngest aunt was able to calm down and coax her husband. She sneered, stop crying. Who knows how many times you've cried? There should be a result by now. Mom and Dad didn't say anything. Calm down and go back to the house to hear what Mom and Dad have to say. As for the younger generation of the Xia family, they all entered the house one by one. Xia Yunin wanted to go over and help but was glared at by his cousin, Xiaoyue. He obediently helped the old madam home. Soon, only Xia Jinyuan and Ms. Xiao were left outside. Madame Xiao, who was crying bitterly, felt that she could not cry out the grievances in her heart. The more she could not cry out her grievances, the more she wanted to cry. Naturally, her crying did not stop. Xia Jinyuan, who couldn't shake off her hands even after trying a few times, decided to give up. He didn't move or speak and just let Ms. Xiao cry without giving her any response. Ayuan, Ayuan. Madame Xiao felt that her throat was about to bleed from crying. She never thought that her son would still not react. He was so cold-blooded that it made her feel even sadder. Why must it be like this? Why must it be like this? Why didn't you tell me about your engagement today? I've already given you my number. Why are you hiding it from me? Yuan, I'm your mother. I was pregnant for 10 months and walked back from the gates of hell. I worked so hard to give birth to you. Even if your mother was wrong in the end, I am still your mother. Why are you so cold-blooded? Why are you treating your mother like this? Why couldn't she forgive her mother? Why? His cries of why sounded like he was weeping blood. However, when Xia Jinyuan heard it, he only felt that it was ironic. She was wrong in the end. Just because she was his mother, he, as her son, had to unconditionally tolerate her mistakes? You're getting engaged today. If it weren't for Mrs. Qin, I wouldn't even know when my son got engaged. Yuan, you're too cruel. Too cruel. You blame me for being cruel to you back then, but aren't you being cruel now? You're getting engaged today. If it weren't for Mrs. Qin, I wouldn't even know when my son got engaged. Yuan, you're too cruel. Too cruel. You blame me for being cruel to you back then, but aren't you being cruel now? Chapter 56-46. 10,000 miles. Red Star lives up to your expectations. Xia Yiwei was very cautious. No need, let's see what sixth brother has to say first. We're all juniors, it's not appropriate for us to interfere. Don't say any more, hurry up and help Grandpa and Grandma in. Xia Yiwei bent over and got into the car again. Master Xia reminded her, Yiwei, help your grandma steady. He was worried that his wife would rush to find trouble with his ex-wife for the sake of sixth brother. Even if she wanted to settle it, she could just call her to the house to settle it. Xia Yiwei, who received the reminder, put a little more force on her wrist and helped Madame Xiao out of the car. It's a little slippery, be careful. Eldest aunt and eldest uncle walked over from behind. They first glanced at Madame Xiao, who was having a good time. A hint of darkness flashed across their eyes. However, seeing that old master and old Madame Xiao didn't say anything, they calmed down and didn't go to Madame Xiao. Family Xia's youngest uncle could not stand it. When he heard Madame Xiao crying after getting out of the car, he said to his wife, "She's crying again, crying again. Every time she comes to our house, she cries. We have never mistreated her, let alone mistreat her. It's the new year, and it's sixth brother's happy day. Who is she crying for? She's ruining the happy atmosphere." Youngest uncle was a businessman, and businessmen were more or less concerned about the omens. When he saw Madame Xiao crying until she was out of breath, he did not look happy. Take care of your eyes if you read for a long time. Fortunately, youngest aunt was able to calm down and coax her husband. She smiled and said, "Stop crying. You've cried so many times, there should be a result. Mom and Dad didn't say anything, so you should calm down first and go back to the house to hear what Mom and Dad have to say." As for the juniors of family Xia, they all went into the house one by one. Xia Yunin wanted to help, but her cousin Xia Yiwei glared at her, and she obediently helped Madame Xiao home. Soon, only Xia Jinyuan and Madame Xiao were left outside. Madame Xiao, who was crying bitterly, felt that she could not cry out the grievances in her heart. The more she could not cry, the more she wanted to cry. Naturally, the more she did not stop crying. Xia Jinyuan tried to shake her hands off, but to no avail. He gave up. He didn't move or open his mouth. He just let Madame Xiao cry and didn't give her any response. Madame Xiao felt that her throat was about to bleed from crying. She never thought that her son would still not react. He was so cold-blooded that it made her feel even sadder. Why is it like this? Why must it be like this? Your engagement day to today's. I, Xiao and 1,000 Li's. Yuan, I'm your mother. I was pregnant for 10 months and walked back from the gates of hell. I worked so hard to give birth to you. Even if your mother was wrong in the end, I am still your mother. Why are you so cold-blooded? Why are you treating your mother like this? Why? She, her, sounded her, why? However, when Xia Jinyuan heard it, he only felt that it was ironic. Later on, he was wrong. Because she was his mother, he, as her son, had to unconditionally endure the huge mistake she had made in the past? Today is your engagement day. If it weren't for Mrs. Qin, I wouldn't even know when my son got engaged. Yuan, you're too cruel. Too cruel. You blame me for being cruel to you back then, but aren't you being cruel now? You even hid your engagement from me. You even hid your marriage from me. Yuan, do you want me to kneel in front of you before you can forgive me? Chapter 56-47. 10,000 miles of Red Star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 56-47. Revenge. Right now, Madame Xiao had no other choice but to cry and complain. Should she use force? She couldn't even get close to the front door of his family Xia's house, let alone see Xia Jinyuan. She could only cry to express her sadness, grievance, helplessness, and regret. She only hoped that her son would forgive her and help her on account of her aging. However, Xia Jinyuan was not an ordinary man. He was a special forces soldier who had undergone special training. Madame Zhao's cries were filled with sadness, helplessness, regret, and selfishness. Her selfishness far exceeded her grievance, sadness, helplessness, and regret. This was what Xia Jinyuan couldn't understand. Of course, he didn't really understand it either. To him, Madame Zhao was just a stranger who he didn't need to understand. Madame Zhao became more and more anxious in the face of Xia Jinyuan's indifference. After saying, "Do you want me to kneel down?" she really did kneel down. She wasn't bluffing. She really intended to kneel down. Xia Jinyuan calmly supported her and replied calmly, "Madame Zhao, if you didn't give birth to me, you wouldn't be standing in front of me crying right now. Instead, I would be asking you to leave. There's nothing about you that deserves my forgiveness. You've already given up your identity as a mother. Please take note of your eyes after reading for a long time. Why do you have to mention giving up? Today is my engagement. It's my big day. I really can't accept your crying." The calmer he was, the more flustered Madame Zhao became. She knew that it would be difficult for her to gain anything today. However, she had to beg for his forgiveness. As long as she could rely on him, then her troubles would be solved. "Yuan, I haven't given up my identity as a mother. How can I give up? You're my son and I'm your mother. We have a blood relationship that no one can cut off. How can I give up? I know you're getting engaged today. I'm very happy, but I'm also very sad. Yuan, you can obviously find a better girl. Why did you choose a girl from the countryside who is of no help to you? You have a bright future ahead of you. You need a good wife. Are you sure that Yi Qian is the right choice for your wife? I've been waiting for you here all day. I really didn't mean to disturb you, but Yuan, I don't want you to regret it in the future, and I don't want your marriage to have any twists and turns. Mommy owes you too much. Mommy really wants to make it up to you now. You have to believe Mommy. Yuan, you have to believe Mommy. Xia Jinyuan is very patient with Ms. Zhao. I'll count to 3. If Ms. Zhao still hasn't left after 3, I'll use certain means to ask Ms. Zhao to leave. From now on, 1. Xia Jinyuan's attitude almost made Ms. Zhao despair. She wanted to kneel down, but the strength supporting her was so strong that she couldn't struggle. Before returning to the country, she thought that it was just a matter that could be easily settled. She did not expect that after a few years, her son's attitude was still the same as before. He did not want to acknowledge her as his mother at all. Yuan, why can't you understand Mommy's suffering back then? Yuan, too, suffering back then? Sorry, he really couldn't understand back then. Xia Jinyuan said the number 2 coldly. He looked at Ms. Zhao coldly. There was no warmth in his eyes. He was like a ball of snow, a ball of ice. The slightest touch would make one feel cold. Chapter 56-48. 10,000 miles of Red Star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 56-48. Romance. Standing in the cold wind, Madame Zhao felt as if someone had stuffed a ball of snow into her heart and filled it with bone-chilling water. Her blood was cold. Yuan. She was still pleading, her voice so sorrowful that it seemed as if she would vomit blood in the next second. Don't be like this. Don't do this to Mom. 3. Xia Jinyuan calmly counted to 3. His impolite method was actually very polite. Even if he forced her to leave, he still had to worry that Madame Zhao would do something bad, say that he had hurt her, and take the opportunity to blame it on him. Therefore, the impolite method was to call the police and ask them to come forward and take her away. This was the family Xia, a place that was heavily patrolled by the police in this area. As long as Xia Jinyuan called the police would definitely be dispatched immediately. He calmly took out his phone, his intentions obvious. Although Madame Xiao was very anxious, she was not surprised by Xia Jinyuan's actions. Her son was a man of his words, and he was not trying to scare her. The half-closed door of the family Xia residence opened. Xia Yunin stood at the threshold and raised his voice. "Sixth brother, Madame Xiao wants to see Aunt Xiao." He then said to Madame Xiao, "Aunt Xiao, it's freezing outside. Let's talk inside." The elders of the family Xia also want to hear what Aunt Xiao has to say to sixth brother. You don't mind if the elders of the family Xia listen to it, right? Take note. After reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. In other words, if Madame Xiao minded, then she would not even have the chance to enter the family Xia residence. Madame Xiao immediately understood what he meant. Now that she was allowed to enter the family Xia residence, it was a glimmer of hope for her. Old Madam and Old Master were kind-hearted, and eldest sister-in-law was also a kind-hearted person. In addition, eldest brother was also there. They should see that she was Ah Yuan's biological mother and say a few good words for her. Without any hesitation, Madame Xiao rushed in front of Xia Jinyuan. She could not wait to agree. At the same time, she let go of Xia Jinyuan's hand and quickly walked in front of him. She was afraid that Xia Jinyuan would stop her from entering the family Xia residence. Xia Jinyuan just frowned slightly. He had no intention of stopping Miss Xiao. Seeing Madame Xiao enter the Xia family's house in a hurry, Xia Jinyuan curled his lips and sneered. Did she really think that the old madam was inviting her over? Madame Xiao decided to come out and take care of herself. Xia Jinyuan stepped forward and followed him into the house. As the heavy door closed with a creaking sound, everything returned to normal. Only the two red lanterns hanging from the beams of the house emitted a quiet and warm light, as if nothing had happened just now. Madame Xiao was on the phone when her eldest sister-in-law lifted the curtain and whispered, "Mom, Schumann is here. Okay, go and listen to what she has to say first. I'll talk to Xinhui for a while." Madame Xiao was on the phone with Commander-in-Chief Xia. She motioned for her eldest sister-in-law to leave and said, "Since you also have something to talk to her about, you should hurry back now. If you have anything to say it clearly today. She's been crying and complaining about being wronged when we visited her several times, as if our family owes her. Xia Xinhui, this is the trouble you caused. You should come back and solve it." With that, Madame Xiao hung up the phone with a cold expression. Now, it was time for her to meet her ex-daughter-in-law. In the living room, family Xia's eldest sister-in-law sighed and said, "Schumann, I really don't dare to accept you calling me sister-in-law. I used to agree, but now you and I are no longer sisters-in-law. What right do I have to accept you calling me sister-in-law? If you don't mind, just call me sister you." Chapter 56-49. 10,000 miles of Red Star will live up to your expectations. Update recovery, urban romance, JQI update recovery. When Madame Xiao knelt down, Xiaoyue was shocked. Madame Xiao stood there and accepted Madame Zhao's kneel with a clear conscience. However, the coldness in her eyes deepened. After a long pause, Madame Xiao sneered. "You've knelt before me twice. The first time, you knelt down and begged me to let you go. This time, what are you begging me for? Tell me, let me hear it. Let's see if this old woman can be merciful again." After saying that, he walked past Miss Xiao, who was kneeling on the ground, without letting her get up to speak. Didn't she like to put on an act? Then she could continue doing it. If she liked to kneel, then she could kneel. Family Xia's eldest daughter-in-law saw this and gestured for her niece, Xiaoyue, to leave. Madame Dowager had asked Madame Xiao to come here for sixth brother's sake. Secondly, she wanted to know Madame Zhao's purpose. She had to save sixth brother's face. No matter how wrong Madame Xiao was, she was still sixth brother's biological mother. His biological mother was kneeling and begging for help while the younger generation was watching from the side. No matter how little sixth brother cared about Madame Xiao, it was still shameful. Xia Yiwei hurriedly left, not daring to stay for a moment. Outside. Take care of your eyes if you read for a long time. Xia Yunin asked Xia Jinyuan why Madame Xiao had come in the middle of the night. Xia Jinyuan took a sip of hot tea and replied calmly, "There's no reason. She's just begging me to forgive her for giving birth to me and let me continue to acknowledge her as my mother." Xia Yunin's expression changed drastically. She sneered, Does she still have any shame? It's because she gave birth to you that I didn't chase her away immediately. Family Xia's door isn't something she can come and go as she pleases." Xia Yiwei heard this and said in a low voice, "What are you saying? No matter what she did wrong, you have no right to say anything." She was afraid that Xia Jinyuan would lose face. Xia Jinyuan smirked and said nonchalantly, "I'm fine. Fifth brother, you can say whatever you want. She really doesn't have the face to do that. Our Xia family has already done everything we can for her. Back then, she left in such a carefree manner. She even swore that she would never set foot in the Xia family. In the end, she was the one who left in a hurry. Now, she's the one who's rushing back. Fifth brother is right. She can't come and go as she pleases at the Xia family's door. Old Six, the elders can say that she's wrong, but you, even if you know it in your heart, don't say it out loud." Xia Yiwei reminded him. She had heard all the rumors in the capital since she was far away in the southern province. Some time ago there were a lot of rumors about you and Xiao Yi in the capital. Fifth brother arranged for your engagement to be held at the racecourse and invited his friends to bring their wives over. He intended to help you and Xiao Yi clear your name. If you say that again, no matter how much effort fifth brother put in, it won't be enough to stop you from ruining yourself. Xia Yiwei and Xia Jinyuan had a good relationship. Naturally, she didn't want to see Xia Jinyuan's life in chaos and be slandered by others. What she said made sense. Xia Yunin immediately turned around and reminded him, "Sister Yiwei is right. We can say that Madame Xiao isn't good, but you really can't. You're her son. No matter how bad a mother is, as a son, you really can't say bad things about her. If you say bad things about her, you'll be the only one at fault." As he spoke, he suddenly thought of something and slammed the table. He gritted his teeth and said, "Some time ago, I kept hearing about sixth brother and sister-in-law. Could it be that Madame Xiao created all of this?" "You just realized it?" Xia Yiwei frowned. "Who else do you think it could be?" You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.